with the Princess of Wales, and the video is you were in that creation.
Yeah, so good morning, first of all. Yes, I'm absolutely delighted with it. The Princess of Wales has been one of our joint presidents for some time now, and hopefully that will continue. There's no reason to think it won't. And I am delighted. Her platform allows for her to really basically become a megaphone for all the great things we do in scouting. And there's no denying it. Every single week, we've got 500,000 young people and adult volunteers meeting, and they are learning, building friendships, learning those really important skills for life, having fun, like I said, making friendships. And they're doing all of this voluntarily. And just like I am, so is the Princess of Wales. What you've mentioned there, you know, the being at one with nature, being at peace in nature, I think it's really important for young people to spend time outdoors. We recognize from all the reports, and you yourself have even spoken about it, mental health issues that we have in society nowadays. Now, this isn't the silver bullet, but I think it is part of the solution. The more young people we can get to spend time in our natural spaces, I think the better we'll be, generally speaking, when we're talking about well-being. Now, in regards to what young people do in our scout groups, it could range from cooking to map reading to model making. Whatever skills the volunteer brings are the skills that we utilize in our groups.
I just don't think I would suit the shorts at my age, but that's it. But there's
Dwayne. Look great in the necker.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
It's unacceptable that anybody is getting on a small boat and crossing the Channel to the United Kingdom. The last government lost control of the borders. I'm determined that we'll retake control of the borders.
Yes, in Albania earlier on today, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, announced his aim to introduce return hubs, tough new offshore containment centres for illegal immigrants. But here's the point. The Albanian Prime Minister told the media he would not host one of Starmer's centres in his country. Confused? Well, so are we. And our man Chris Hope grilled Keir and will help you to separate the reality from the rhetoric. But one person who seems unconvinced is the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp.
It is a con on the British public for Keir Starmer to claim these return hubs will have any practical effect, and he's had a big slap in the face.
And in another sensational Mark White exclusive, the Home Office has been condemned for a shocking waste of taxpayers' money, as we reveal the tens of thousands of pounds of your money spent on entertaining immigrants at Kent's processing facility. And the bombshell reports warns that the Bradford rape gang scandal left more than 72,000 children at risk of sexual exploitation. The council's leaders have repeatedly rejected calls for an inquiry. Will they finally listen now? And treatment for trans toddlers, the NHS is now offering gender care to nursery-aged children. Seriously, some children that age think the moon is made of cheese. How on earth can they know that they are transgender? And spoiler, the moon is not made of cheese. But on a serious point, Keir Starmer today in Albania. Containment centres, return hubs. Sounds great, doesn't it? With echoes of what they did in Australia. Turn the boats around. Anybody there gets processed offshore with no hope of returning to Australia. Anybody who arrives illegally shall not make Australia their home. A lot of people think that would be great. Is Keir Starmer's return hub plan, is this containment centre plan anything approaching anything like that? Or will be very disappointed if that is what you'll expect? We'll have all the truth, the rhetoric, the reality will be separated by our man Chris Hope, who was with the Prime Minister this morning in Albania. Get in touch usual ways, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do it. But now's your headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Very good afternoon to you. The latest from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says the UK is in talks with a number of countries about return hubs abroad for migrants awaiting deportation, although that will not include Albania. Sir Keir Starmer is there for talks with the Prime Minister, Eddie Rama, to agree separate measures to crack down on organised crime and illegal migration. The government hopes to send failed asylum seekers to return hubs in Balkan countries once they've exhausted all avenues of appeal. Sir Keir Starmer hoping to collaborate with other European countries to fulfil his pledge to stop the boats. Well, he's met security forces in Albania earlier. He's been seeing how officers search for and seize illegal materials. The UK is understood to be ready to share intelligence and supply drones to countries like North Macedonia and Montenegro in an effort to tackle the gangs. And more than 12,000 people have crossed the channel in small boats since the start of the year. That's a record number. GB News has learned the Home Office is spending tens of thousands of pounds on entertainment for migrants at a Kent processing facility. The results of a Freedom of Information request show more than £60,000 has gone on TVs with satellite channels, gaming systems and other entertainment at the Manston Processing Centre. It houses migrants for around 48 hours after they arrive in Kent before they move on to hotels or other accommodation. The former Chief Executive of Border Force, Tony Smith, has described it as a shocking waste of money. The Chancellor's welcomed new figures that show the economy's grown by more than expected over the first 3 months of the year. She was earlier meeting workers at a Rolls-Royce factory in Derby and gave an address. She referenced those figures from the ONS, which show that GDP increased by 0.7% between January and March. The Chancellor says it proves the government's moving in the right direction, but she did accept there is much more to do. Police searching for the parents of 3 newborn babies abandoned over an 8-year period say they've narrowed it down to just 400 homes in East London. Officers have been going door to door in the East Ham area in an attempt to uncover information which may lead to the identification of the mother. Police say they can't discount a 4th baby being found as time goes on. Now, the 3 babies, named Harry, Roman and Elsa, were found abandoned in 2017, 2019 and 2024, respectively, within a few miles of each other in the east of the capital. The Prime Minister's led tributes to the investigative journalist Andrew Norfolk, who's died at the age of 60. The former Times reporter exposed the Rotherham grooming gang scandal. His investigations led to an inquiry into child sexual exploitation, which found around 1,400 children were sexually exploited over a 16-year period. Sir Keir Starmer says Mr Norfolk was absolutely integral in helping to change the law so more grooming gang members could be convicted. And it's been confirmed that pubs will be allowed to stay open late during the Euros if England or Wales reach the semi-finals or beyond. Closing, therefore, will go from 11 p.m. back to 1 a.m. so football fans can get that extra time together to celebrate the final stages of the championships in Switzerland this July. Fan parks, no doubt, will be a big feature of the tournament, as they tend to be. Lots of beer flying everywhere. Not the case in this picture. Very sensible. England, well, they'll have a good chance to be in that semi-final or final, you would think. Wales too, maybe. England, the defending champions, having won it 4 years ago, was it? No, 3 years ago, 2022. So they will hope to see more scenes like this, and we all hope to see more scenes like this. Wonderful balancing act from this chap. This was actually at a fan park for the men's Euros. Significantly good skills, I think you will agree. That's it for the moment. More from the GB Newsroom a little bit later this afternoon.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, today announced that failed asylum seekers will be sent to return hubs in third countries while they await deportation. But Albania, the country where the Prime Minister was earlier today, has already ruled themselves out of taking part in this scheme. And what many are seeing as a cruel blow to Sir Keir Starmer's plans. Well, let's cross now to GB News political editor Chris Hope, who's been with the Prime Minister this morning in Albania, holding power to account. Chris, you're the best in the business. I'll say that once again. Chris, return hubs, containment centres, Sounds great. Sounds a bit like what Australia did. Turn the boats around, put people in containment centres, process them there. If they're illegal, they'll never get a chance to get into the country. Or even what Italy has with Albania, offshore processing, a tough policy of no entry if you arrive illegally. Chris, I don't think what Keir Starmer is proposing is anywhere near as tough as that. Tell us more.
Hi Martin, welcome to Tirana, Albania. You are exactly right. This idea is to take people who've been through all the different processes of trying to stay in the UK, migrants arriving there, and then when they've finally failed and when they're moved to a third country, it won't be Albania, it'll be a country probably in the Western Balkans, and then they'll be returned to a safe country. If they come from an unsafe country, that won't happen. They need to have exhausted the entire asylum-seeking process. This is not Rwanda Mark II, the PM was very keen to stress. This is a different idea altogether. I asked in a press conference earlier whether it might mean you would take the pressure off the hotels, might mean the hotels, these migrant hotels, empty more quickly. He didn't say yes to that either. It looks, though, like when someone's been to the end of the asylum process, rather than trying to maybe have a family here and appeal any decision under the Article 4 of the European Convention on Human Rights, instead they're removed very rapidly and put to this third country and then passed on finally to the country they came from. Other ideas being looked at by the Prime Minister, stopping the revolving door from Albanians being sent here, sent back, that we're giving 2 passport machines to check passports to ensure that fake passports can be picked up. They're expanding intelligence cooperation in this area. But earlier I did speak exclusively to the PM for GB News, and here's a summary of what he had to say. In 2020, you said you want to make a wider case for immigration, make the case for the benefits of migration. How can GB News viewers believe you when you say you're concerned about it now?
Well, I've always said that our country should be able to walk forward into the future in a way which is bringing our communities together, our neighbours together. And that's why I'm clear that we shouldn't be an island of strangers.
The island of strangers was language, some say, used by Enoch Powell. So how do you respond to the left-wing MPs saying you're adopting Powell-like language, a dog whistle almost?
Well, that's a complete nonsense. My values are about how we bring our country together. I've always believed in the patriotism that Labour has long embodied as a political party. We are proud of our country. We take our country forward. We do that by bringing our neighbours together, by being neighbours and being a community, not by being strangers. That is a strong Labour value. It's a patriotic value. We've already taken effective action on arrests and seizure of assets across the globe, high-level arrests. We've already got many agreements in place now with other countries for cooperating on law enforcement. You saw some of that here in Albania this morning. UK forces alongside Albanian forces. What now we want to do, and we're having discussions on, talks on, is return hubs, which is where someone's been through the system in the UK, they need to be returned, and we have to make sure they're returned effectively, and we'll do that if we can through return hubs. So that's what the talk's about.
So return hubs there, they're a bit like sort of putting a big toe in the swimming pool. Rather than jumping all in into a kind of Rwanda-style deal, it's going towards there, but maybe not there yet, maybe not at all. But certainly the idea, the PM would see it as a number of options to try and deal with the issue of migration. A lot of effort, though. There's no silver bullet, the PM said. And also, look at that language you heard there from the Prime Minister. I asked him repeatedly whether he thought that this language so offended the left was appropriate for Labour Prime Minister about the idea of strangers on an island tearing the country apart. He said it all again. He said strangers 3 times. He doubled down on language, trying to demonstrate to voters in the Red Wall area, Reform UK, maybe voters too, that he understands the concerns of migration. He's no longer the person back in 2020 who talked up migration as a good thing. He understands the pressure now on communities. And just finally, Martin, the very end of the interview wasn't played then, but I did ask him, will you fight the next election? What's your plans for the future? And he wouldn't say he would. He just said we've been very busy with all the work with India, US, and of course the Brexit reset this weekend. And a few hours later he came back to confirm to reporters he will fight the next election. He's on a 10-year mission to improve this country, in his own words.
Chris Hope, superb stuff. You talked there about Sir Keir Starmer dipping his toe in the water. Isn't it a bit too late for that? We need a big splash. We need a big plan. We need something that's going to be a clear deterrent. We've had a record number of boats coming over this year. It's 12,700 on set to be an all-time high. And I put it to you, Chris Hope, to get people to return hubs who failed their asylum won't be a deterrent because they've got a 70% chance of being granted asylum on the first attempt anyway. This is a sticking plaster, and I put it to you, it's smoke and mirrors.
Well, I think he's just going down a different route to the Conservative Party. The Conservatives want to do this idea of a silver bullet, maybe the Rwanda deportation plan, maybe withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights in a limited way, or altogether, if you're the Reform UK Party. Clearly what's happening here is the Prime Minister is trying to stay within the rules. He won't pull out the ECHR. He might vary how judges apply it if he can do that, but that's about it. He is trying to use all the levers they've got already in place and not bust it open. The idea of a silver bullet, he thinks, is wrong. He believes personally that the Rwanda plan just meant that migrants were holed up in hotels waiting for as the Home Office took its eye off the ball. He wants to get that right using the existing processes, and we'll wait and see. I think, frankly, everyone talks a big game on migration now across all the parties, maybe apart from the Liberal Democrats. Let's see if what they're saying can be delivered into action. The jury is certainly out on that, Martin.
OK, superb stuff. Well done, Chris, and I'll speak to you again in the next hour. And meanwhile, enjoy Albania. Now, in another Mark White GBNews exclusive, the Home Office has been accused of a shocking waste of money as tens of thousands of pounds spent on entertaining migrants at a Kent processing facility. Well, join us now to tell us more is that man with the exclusive, our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, who uncovered this story. Mark White, once again, while taxpayers are struggling to make ends meet, those arriving by dinghies living the life of Riley.
Yeah, this is just one small example of the way in which taxpayers' money is being used to fund the wraparound services for asylum seekers. But this one, I think, will be particularly controversial because it's effectively the second that these migrants step on shore, having crossed the English Channel illegally, they're taken to Manston, to this processing centre where they're only there for a day, maybe 2 days, before they go off to their taxpayer-funded hotels, but they're being provided with TVs, satellite TV channels, Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation and other games. And we've found out that it's tens of thousands, more than 60,000 actually, that is being spent for these entertainment packages. 12,000 or so a year for 14 televisions in the various sort of marquees at Manston. And then for 20 of these games consoles, about another 15,000 again, and clearly, you know, some real questions about whether this is the appropriate way to spend taxpayers' money. We've heard from the former chief executive of Border Force, Tony Smith, who says it's a shocking waste of money and will be counterproductive. He says, I'm afraid this simply fuels the pull factor and the smuggling pipeline into the UK, and it will do nothing to achieve the reduction in the arrival numbers that most people want to see. And I've been speaking to another senior security source who says it's crazy that we're effectively rewarding migrants for bad behaviour, that these same migrants have survived for months in tents on their trek to France, and then of course weeks and potentially months in the jungles around Calais and Dunkirk as well, without TVs, without any video games, and they've managed just fine. Chris Hope, of course, you were speaking to there in that interview with the Prime Minister, did ask him about this issue, but I think the Prime Minister rather dodges the question. Take a look.
We found evidence at Manston, one of the processing centres, £80,000 being spent on satellite TV, video games in this one location. How isn't that a pull factor? The hotels we offer to migrants arriving in the UK, isn't that a pull factor to make people, encourage them to make that journey across the Channel?
Let me be absolutely clear why we're in the mess we're in. The last government had an open borders experiment. Many people came to the United Kingdom and they didn't process the claims. So you've got tens of thousands of people whose claims haven't been processed. Therefore, they couldn't be returned under the last government. They were put in hotels. That's not acceptable. And the British taxpayers picking up the bill. That's why we've allocated all the extra resource to processing the claims. Where we've processed the claims and people shouldn't be in the country, they've been removed. 24,000 have been removed. That's the highest figure for nearly a decade. They're out of the country. They had no right to be here. That is the way we bring down these numbers. That's the way we get people out of hotels. Under the last government, there were I think 400 hotels. It's down. We've got it down to just over 200. That's not good enough, but it does show that we're making a difference.
Mark White, it's just astonishing that 80 grand on video games, you rock up and you get all this for free. If they don't sort this out soon, pardon the pun, it's going to be game over for them. And Mark White, I believe you have yet more video evidence to show us of a shocking waste of British taxpayers' money.
Well, yes, I mean, it just is part, again, of the wraparound services that the taxpayer is paying to ensure the comfort of these migrants. Now, they are given clean clothing when they arrive in the UK. You would expect that because many of them are disease-ridden, having lived rough for months at a time. But again, you know, questions have been asked as whether it's the taxpayer that should fit that bill. In Denmark, for instance, they passed legislation where assets from migrants can be seized to fund the purchase of clothing and other things. But not only are they getting clothing, Martin, they're getting branded natty little T-shirts with Union Jacks on it. I know you like your dancing videos. We've got another one for you here that illustrates that. I hope you've got your blood pressure pills.
Yeah, so have we got those videos to show? The videos, OK, while we're waiting for those to show, you're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, I saw them earlier. You keep showing us videos of the entire process, all the way from France, all the way to the beaches, across the Channel. When people land this side, they're living the life of Riley, and it's really, really making people say enough is enough, because it's never been more transparent, and they're actually using these videos now as a marketing device. It's a self-perpetuating game. It just means that it goes on and on and on.
Yes, absolutely, it does. I mean, I've tried to show you these videos. I just need the word from our gallery that we've got them. Is that no videos, did you say?
Let's crack on for now. They're going to get them to us in a minute.
Yeah, OK, we'll bring them to you next hour, hopefully.
OK, Mark White, thank you very much. We will get those ready for you in the next hour. Apologies there for a slight technical gremlin. I'm joined in studio by Mike Tapp now. Of course, he's the MP for the Labour Party for Dover and Deal, right on the front line of this issue. Of course, the beaches where they're landing is literally your backyard, your constituency. Mike, thanks for coming along to the studio today. Let's start, if we can, with Sir Keir Starmer in Albania. Sounds great. The principle sounds very, very tough, but we have to address the first notion. The media is calling it a total humiliation for Keir Starmer today, because the Prime Minister of Albania, Edi Rama, has said he won't even have one of the hubs in his country.
Well, I think Keir Starmer is exploring a number of different countries for those return hubs for those that fail to meet the requirements in this country. But just going back a little bit, if you don't mind, we've inherited, obviously, open borders, a system at the Home Office that simply wasn't functioning. That's filled up the hotels, is costing our taxpayers a hell of a lot of money. So we've got a big problem to fix here. And what we've done in our early stages of government is started to legislate with counter-terror powers to take on the smuggling gangs. We've got the system moving in the Home Office. That's led to many, many more decisions. I think 50% rise on decisions. We've had 24,000 removals. That's up by about 21%. So what we've got to bear in mind is that's not the answer. We're not there yet, but we're fixing the foundations, so to speak, to then move on and start bringing in those extra deterrents, for example, return hubs. And look, what Keir has said at the beginning of his term is that nothing is off the table, and I expect we'll see some harder measures coming through in the future.
Well, things are off the table. He's already said that the Labour Party won't countenance the notion of leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, which is one of the massive, massive barriers to any of these things having any teeth. It meant that Rwanda never got off the ground, and it would likely mean that it would be the same for any tough proposal that the Labour Party put in. It's performative, let's be frank. And the notion of smashing the gangs aren't listening. We're on tracks for a record year, 12,700 already, and rising.
Well, every solution that we put forward and work towards is complex. I have to stress that. There is no silver bullet here. On the ECHR, let's say that, for example, I hear the sentiments around leaving that, but it is not as simple as that. We have trade deals, immigration return deals, the Good Friday Agreement that brought peace in Northern Ireland, all underpinned by that Human Rights Act. So it's a bit of a blunt tool to leave.
What about rewriting, then, the British Constitution to get around it? I mean, that's a be quick fix.
And this is where... pretty much where Keir's going with this and the Home Secretary. So what we're looking at doing is ensuring that the judges here have some nice guidelines on that interpretation so they can't be exploited, which we've seen in the past. And then those that don't meet the threshold to stay here but can't be removed, for example, if their country of origin is not safe to return to, we produce these return hubs, which is what we're talking about today,
but that's
to
only
deport those people.
But that's only for people whose asylum claims have failed. And as I pointed out, 70% are granted first time round, and then they go into an endless round of appeals. And by the end of the endless appeals, practically everybody gets accepted anyway. It'll be a tiny percentile that goes to these return hubs. It wouldn't be a deterrent, and it won't stop the boats.
And this is where what I say about everything being on the table, within reason, it has to be deliverable, it has to be within the law. We're likely to see harder measures in the future.
Like what?
What we've got to... I mean, look, there's a hell of a lot we can do around...
It's got to be a bit harder than this.
One of the issues we have here is there are... we see a lot of simplistic rhetoric from the likes of Reform, deploy the military, for example. Now, I'd love to see British troops securing the border on the French side, but of course we'd need French permission to do that. So there is a lot of underlying complexity to
these things. What about putting the Navy in the Channel?
I mean, look,
would you like to do that?
And this is where you have to discuss and look at exactly how that would work, because warships are very high. How do you block a boat? It's not quite as simple as that. You're putting people potentially
you said nothing is off the table, but now leaving the ECHR is off the table. Deploying the Navy is off the table.
I'm not saying that military deployments are necessarily off the table. It's not something I've had from the Home Office, but all of these things I expect will be
I bet you the voters in Dover would like to see that happen. I bet your constituents tell you that all the time.
But it has to work. And this is where I'm really clear to my constituents. I said this months ago to yourself, Martin, that people that have this concern are completely valid. We hear that. We've said from the beginning that we're looking to secure the borders. We wouldn't accept 30,000 a year smashing through the barriers at Heathrow, and therefore we will not accept the small boats issue. It is a security issue, and we've got to treat it like that. And I see that's exactly where we're going as a party. But of course, these things take time. There's diplomatic talks, there's process that needs to go through, and often there's not a running commentary on that.
OK, well, let's have a look now. I believe we do have those videos that Mark White got us, more exclusives. Let's have a look at these videos now. These are videos that have been sent to Mark White from a source. These are of asylum seekers who've landed in Britain. And look, they've been given head-to-toe new outfits. Union Jack T-shirts looking every part like a tourist on a day trip. All paid for by British taxpayers. Here we go, look, dancing away in a hotel room provided by you, playing with his whatever he's doing there. He's got his Union Jack T-shirt on, obviously living the life of Riley, delighted to be in Britain. Patrick Christie's was over there. Mike Tapp, you'd have seen a couple of days ago. There's an endless conveyor belt of these military-age young men coming to Britain, and this is where British taxpayers' money is going. Hotel rooms, T-shirts, they're dancing, they're laughing at British taxpayers, Mike.
And this is why it's so important that we bring these crossings down and secure the border. You know, it's costing the taxpayer a lot of money.
Our country is a laughing stock, Mike Tapp. Look at this.
I mean, actually looking at the report you had on before around Sky satellite and gaming, for etc. These public sector contracts are often ridiculously overinflated and shouldn't cost that much. And, you know, I've no doubt that the Home Office are looking at savings along the way. But look, we have to bring those numbers down. We're working very hard at it. We're deporting and removing record numbers, and that will continue.
Mike, when you look at this videos like this on your screen, when you look at the numbers, 12,700 so far, previous government also, let's be honest, made a complete dog's dinner of this. Do you think the electorate looks at this and just think nobody listens to the voters, nothing is changing, all we ever hear is tough talks, return hubs, Rwanda deals, nothing happens? Do you think the electorate are just thinking, do you know what, we don't trust any of you anymore?
Well, look, I mean, that lad who's having a bit of fun there, I don't know him, I don't know his story. I'm glad he's wearing a British flag, by the way. I think we should have more flags flying around the country. But this whole problem does need to be fixed. And we have inherited open borders, a difficult, complex issue to get on top of. And look, when the Conservatives talk about what they would do, they had 14 years to do that. We saw in 2018 400 cross and over 150,000 since. It's a complex issue, but the viewers have my absolute word that this is a top priority for this government, a top priority for Keir Starmer and for Yvette Cooper.
I think it needs to be. Otherwise, as I said earlier, 80 grand's worth of video games. It's going to be game over. Mike Tapp, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
In the studio, of course, the Labour Party MP for Dover and Deal. Now, still to come, a new report warns that the Bradford rape gang scandal left 72,000 children at risk. We'll have all the latest on that next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:32 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Safeguarding Minister, Jess Phillips, has been warned that more than 72,000 children in Britain may have been at risk of child sexual exploitation across Bradford. Let's cross now to GB News reporter Charlie Peters.
A dossier of evidence has been handed in to ministers and officials at the Home Office, warning that over 72,000 children could have been at risk from attacks from grooming gangs and child sexual exploitation from 1996 to the present day in Bradford. The warning comes amid further concerns that the scale of the abuse in West Yorkshire and across the Bradford district could dwarf that of Rotherham, where reports found that at least 1,400 children were abused from 1997 to 2013. Now, Solicitor David Greenwood, who was playing a part in compiling that dossier, has warned that there are systemic failures across the district in getting a grip of the child sexual exploitation crisis in the area. And Robbie Moore MP, the Conservative who joined Mr Greenwood in handing in that dossier, has said that local political leadership in Bradford have resisted demands for a local independent inquiry into the crisis. Now, this dossier of evidence has been handed in as the government faces decisions on whether further local inquiries will be announced and delivered. In January, they said there would be at least 5 local inquiries, but so far only 1 has been announced in Oldham. Campaigners such as Mr Moore and Mr Greenwood continue to insist, alongside many survivors, that Bradford must be one of those 5.
Charlie Peters, once again, great reporting. And a reminder, Robbie Moore, the MP, the Conservative Party for Keighley, who handed in that petition, he'll join me tonight at 7 p.m. on GBN tonight to tell the incredible story of he believes that Bradford is bigger than Rotherham. The historic abuse that went on there, he believes, is off the charts. It dwarfs anything that was ever reported. He wants a full inquiry, and I think today's evidence, 72,000 children were at risk, may add further pressure onto the government to make sure that, in some capacity, that happens. Now, a Home Office spokesperson has replied and told GB News this: "We have already committed to supporting local authorities through our £5 million fund for local areas, the best practice framework for local inquiries, and commissioned a rapid national audit to uncover the true scale of grooming gangs in the UK today, including looking at ethnicity." Lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including the Labour Party has refused to fly a flag celebrating British fighting against Napoleon in Middlesex. Now they're censoring flags. That's next.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, there is more sunshine to finish off the week, feeling warm, but always a little bit cloudier, cooler across eastern areas. And it's all thanks to high pressure, just sitting to the north of the country, dragging in a northeasterly flow, so more cloud, a bit more of a breeze moving through here, adding on to the chill of things. And as we head through into this evening and overnight, it's likely we'll see a return of the low cloud, particularly across southern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, and then eventually across central and southern parts as we reach towards dawn, but many areas staying dry, clear, particularly in the west and across the north, where it's likely we could just about dip below freezing. So it's going to be a fairly chilly start for some as we head into Friday. Then across Scotland, potentially some mist and fog in prone spots, feeling a little bit chilly, very isolated spots of frost in rural parts, perhaps still some low cloud plaguing the very far northeast of Scotland, but across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, once again a dry and clear start to Friday morning, and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales, but still a chance of some low clouds, some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas, and still a chance it could linger here for much of the day, particularly around any North Sea coastal counties. But once again, for many areas, lots of dry weather around, wall-to-wall sunshine for many, particularly in the west. That's where we're going to see the best of the temperatures. Highs widely reaching the low 20s, highs of around 22 to 23 degrees Celsius across parts of the south, so a fairly pleasant end to the week. Then through into the evening, a rinse and repeat, a return of the low cloud moving in from the North Sea, many western areas staying dry and clear, so once again turning a little chilly under clear skies. But as we head towards the weekend, once again not much change, some low cloud to start in the morning, but plenty of warm sunshine by the afternoon. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Northumberland, the A1 northbound is delayed due to an overturned vehicle, with only one lane open. Derbyshire's A38 northbound has a 10-minute delay due to a collision. Buckinghamshire's A404 northbound at its M40 link faces lane closures from an incident. In Hampshire, a collision on the M3 westbound at junction 11 causes significant delays, with 2 lanes blocked. A fire on the A30 westbound is causing 10-minute delays. And on the trains, disruptions are reported between Lancaster and Carlisle, affecting Avanti West Coast and Caledonian sleeper services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:39 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Labour Party has refused to fly an historic county flag over Downing Street that celebrates the British battle against Napoleon. There it is. Look at it. Majestic. The Middlesex flag won't fly over Downing Street this year to mark the celebration. Well, why? Here's a man who might know the answer, because joining me now is the Conservative MP for Romford and the chair of the British Heritage All-Party Parliamentary Group, Andrew Rosendale. Andrew, a pleasure to have your company once again. What's so offensive about this flag?
Nothing at all. In fact, the flying of the Middlesex flag started under Boris Johnson. Of course, Boris was a Middlesex MP representing Uxbridge, but so is Keir Starmer. Now, Rishi Sunak continued with that tradition, celebrating the historic British counties. And London, of course, is part of the historic county Middlesex. So it's only right that the fantastic flag, and it is a majestic flag.
Well, look at it, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's an absolutely wonderful thing.
I'm from Essex, although I have to say that Middlesex was originally part of the Kingdom of Essex,
yes.
so I sort of lay a bit of claim to it. But the fact is, the Middlesex Heritage, which is an organisation set up by the wonderful Russell Grant, who you'll know, and he has promoted the idea of historic counties through the British Association of Counties, and Boris flew that flag. I was there for the flying that day. Now, there's no reason why that flag shouldn't be flown. It was a gifted to number 10. It's not offensive to anybody. It represents the whole of the historic county.
Well, except it is offensive to the Labour Party.
But why? Why? I don't get it. You know, don't they like our heritage, our history, our proud traditions and our customs? And the counties are part of that. In fact, they're essential to our entire history. You know, on geography, in culture, social interaction and historic connections. So Middlesex still exists. It was never abolished. The county council may have been abolished, but the county itself was never got rid of. And this is the misunderstanding. They think that county councils are the same as counties. They're not. They are purely administrative creations.
So what about this connection that it celebrates British fight against Napoleon? A, what's wrong with that? You know, if we beat the French at stuff, I think that's worthy of a glass of something anyway. Is it that? It might offend the French. Is it rather cosy up to Macron than acknowledge the people of Middlesex? Or is it something else? The fact that it was Boris's idea, therefore he wants to stop it simply because of that?
Martin, I think it's more simple than this. I just don't think think the Labour Party understand the heritage of our country. They see it all out of date. They see it as something that we should discard and forget about. Let's be modern. Let's move forward. Let's forget our history. Let's start from day one, as if history never happened. And the reality is the United Kingdom, but particularly England, has a patchwork of historic counties. I'm deeply proud of being from Essex. I'm sick and tired of people saying that Romford is East London when we're Essex. None of us want to be under the Greater London Authority. But the thing we do hold dear to is the historic counties, because they were never abolished. So when people say Middlesex doesn't exist, it's wrong. And it's so important to people in daily lives today. Essex County Cricket Club, as a great example. Middlesex University, Middlesex County Cricket Club. All these things are important. But to get rid of those traditions doesn't help anybody. In fact, it offends the people that think it's important.
And Andrew, it also resurrects an argument we saw last Thursday about the Reform Party talking about the banning of flying certain flags because they seem to be superseding our own. The Ukrainian flags, more or less, all over the shop. Pride flags all over the shop. And there seems to be a sense that those flags, the fashionable flags, the liberal flags, they're a good thing. But celebrating British culture is seen as bad. And it makes people believe, I think the political class seems to have an obsession with trendy causes, but they're not actually proud to be British.
No, I think that we've too many flags that have political meaning behind them. But I think what's important is we actually fly our national flags, our country flags. So at my town hall, we fly the Union flag, Cross of St George, and we are flying the Essex flag for Essex Day, but I think it should be flown all year round. But I don't believe we should be flying flags of every type of minority cause. I do think there are days such as...
it's just beautiful.
It's great.
It's an absolutely
it's
beautiful...
fantastic.
That is
but, it's very similar to the Essex flag, but we don't have the crown. They're lucky. They've got the crown on the Middlesex flag.
I just think it's a gorgeous...
We have the sea axis on the Essex one, but not the... It's fantastic.
I just don't understand why people poke their nose in looking for trouble. But there should be a flag. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. But there should be, the national flag, the country flag, the county flag, and, say, for instance, Battle of Britain Day, I'd fly the Royal Air Force flag.
I've got a crown, look. For the first time in my life, I've got a crown. Beautiful. Sorry to interject. Go on.
St David's Day, I'd fly the Welsh flag. But would I fly flags of all these sort of cold causes and minority? No, I wouldn't. I think we need to get back to sensible policy of flag flying. Yes, if an international visitor comes to Parliament, and Mr Speaker, I have to say, is fantastic. He's flying the historic county flags. He flies flags when a visiting head of state or an ambassador or high commissioner comes of that country, out of respect for their visit. But should we be flying these flags on a daily basis? No, we shouldn't.
What about the Ukraine
flag? To our national flags.
I want to push you on the Ukraine flag. A lot of people say, the trouble with supporting any foreign venture, foreign country, foreign war, it lays it open to the fact we have to then support them all. For example, there was a huge pushback. We can't put the Israeli flag up in case it offends the pro-Palestine community, but the Ukrainian flag is ubiquitous across town halls.
I think, personally speaking, I understand why the Ukraine flag was flown at the start of the war. I understand after the 7th of October 2 years ago why the Israeli flag. I put the Israeli flag outside my office. Margaret Thatcher House in Romford, we flew the Israeli flag.
Yeah, good for you. But a lot of town halls didn't. Wembley Stadium wouldn't.
They didn't.
A lot of official buildings wouldn't.
But it is a dangerous road to go down, because then you're going to fly the flag of anywhere where there's a conflict. And I think political flags should not be flown. We should stick to national flags, country flags, town flags, county flags, and for national celebrations, royal flags, Battle of Britain Day for the RAF, St George's Day, St David's Day. Let's stick to those things. Let's discard this multiplicity of flags that really are promoting particular causes. We shouldn't be political. We should be promoting our heritage and our sense of nationhood. That's what's most important when it comes to flying the flag.
Let's have one final look at this flag here. I'm not even from Essex. I think it's absolutely resplendent. It's beautiful.
Well, that's Middlesex, Martin.
Yeah, it's just so well drawn. It just taps into a national fervour, a patriotism. It's majestic.
It is, it is. And if you go to Parliament Square today, you'll see the flags of all the British overseas territories and the Crown dependencies. I had to fight to get those flags flying. The DCMS didn't even have them in stock.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Yeah.
And later in the year, we have the County Day, and we fly the flags of all the British counties in July. So every British county's flag is flown in Parliament Square. But I do pay tribute to Mr Speaker, because this year he's now flying the county flags on each day. And tomorrow he will fly the Middlesex flag, Lindsay Hoyle, unlike Keir Starmer, who's refusing to do so.
I'm being told we have to move on. I'm simply getting too excited by flags, but thank you very much for joining us. Andrew Rosendale, absolutely love it. Thank you. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst widespread sunny skies return to the UK, rain clears Italy but pushes into Greece, where it will become increasingly windy by Friday. Fairly breezy for the Canaries, but mostly fine here with partly cloudy skies across Spain, Portugal into Gibraltar. 1 or 2 showers, otherwise plenty of sunshine. But for Italy, it's been very unsettled here, particularly in the south. We do have the rain and the wind pushing now into Greece, where it will be unsettled for a few days before turning brighter later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Health programme that turns back the clock. Promotional Longevity is a wellness company with a difference. Using a combination of science and fitness, it aims to reduce people's biological age.
We take their initial tests and work out their biological age, and we take a history of their exercise, what they're eating, and then we make a bespoke programme that's kind of personalised to each participant, and that will guide them through 6 weeks of diet. Everything that they eat will be planned, their exercise is planned, we can help with supplements, anti-ageing protocols for things like sleep, skincare, kind of all aspects of ageing really.
It comes as life expectancy in Yorkshire is one of the lowest in the country, according to the ONS.
Well, a man born in Yorkshire can expect to live almost a decade, well, in certain parts of Yorkshire, let's be more specific, can expect to live a decade less than someone born in certain parts of the south. That's pretty significant. People in Yorkshire can expect to be in poor health for the last 20 years of their life. And England as a whole, I mean, for one of the richest nations in the world, we lag behind Europe in terms of life expectancy and health expectancy, which is really the crucial thing to us, really. It's not about how many years you live. It's about living those years with some kind of quality of life.
62-year-old Debbie Shaw reduced her biological age by 17 years on Promotional Longevity's 6-week programme.
I lost 1.5 stone on their diet, and that's something that I just kind of accepted was older age. I'm a menopausal woman and we put weight on. I started off at 56 and I ended up at 39. And I feel 39 again.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:51 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the future of Nissan's Sunderland plant are in doubt as the Japanese car giant confirms it will shut 7 factories around the world and reduce its workforce by as many as 20,000. Will it affect Sunderland? Well, let's cross live now to Anna Riley, who is in Sunderland. Anna, huge concern about the Nissan plant there, as we recently saw with Southport and the steelworks. What's the latest?
Good afternoon, Martin. Certainly, and this news as well comes today as BMW are assessing jobs in Swindon, with hundreds of jobs potentially lost there with the mini plant. Certainly, you could say that the British automotive production could be in crisis. Certainly here in Sunderland, there's 6,000 jobs that would be on the line at this plant here. It's been running since 1986. Since then, 11 million cars have been made. It currently makes the Qashqai Nissan model, the electric vehicle, the Leaf, and the Nissan Duke. And certainly, we've been speaking to people here in the city, and they sort of relate it back to the way industry's gone. They said that they've lost their shipbuilding industry here, and if they were to lose the automotive industry, one of the cornerstones of the northeast economy here, it would be fatal. This is what people told us earlier.
Well, we're very lucky that when the shipyards went, Nissan was there to fill the gap. So in actual fact, it's probably been one of the major employers in the area. But I also know that Nissan's reputation with regards to the area, with training of young people and things like that, and their actual, what would I call it, their standing in the industry means that the people of Sunderland and Nissan have probably got very little to worry about, because they're sort of like one of the best car manufacturers in the world.
Because we lost all the shipbuilding, we've lost the mines and everything else, you know, and it's about all we've got left, isn't it? You know, and it would be disastrous if anything happened there.
Well, it means employment. Without that, they've got nothing. There's nothing in this town for anybody. It's an absolute disgrace.
The views of the people from Sunderland there. And I know earlier this week, Martin, you spoke to the local MP for Sunderland, Lewis Atkinson, who was quietly confident that jobs would be safe here, especially with the investment in the electric vehicles here, with the Gigafactory already here and another £1 billion of investment being made to set up a second factory to make car batteries that Nissan here will use.
Anna Riley, superb report. Thank you very, very much. And there could, I think, be a Brexit lifeline for Nissan. More next. But also coming next, Sir Keir Starmer today launches return hubs in Albania. Guess what? Albania won't even have one. That's next. But first, here's your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, there is more sunshine to finish off the week, feeling warm, but always a little bit cloudier, cooler across eastern areas. And it's all thanks to high pressure, just sitting to the north of the country, dragging in a northeasterly flow, so more cloud, a bit more of a breeze moving through here, adding on to the chill of things. And as we head through into this evening and overnight, it's likely we'll see a return of the low cloud, particularly across southern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, and then eventually across central and southern parts as we reach towards dawn. But many areas staying dry, clear, particularly in the west and across the north, where it's likely we could just about dip below freezing. So it's going to be a fairly chilly start for some as we head into Friday. Then across Scotland, potentially some mist and fog in prone spots, feeling a little bit chilly, very isolated spots of frost in rural parts, perhaps still some low cloud plaguing the very far northeast of Scotland, but across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, once again a dry and clear start to Friday morning, and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales, but still a chance of some low clouds, some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas, and still a chance it could linger here for much of the day, particularly around any North Sea coast coastal counties. But once again, for many areas, lots of dry weather around, wall-to-wall sunshine for many, particularly in the west. That's where we're going to see the best of the temperatures. Highs widely reaching the low 20s, highs of around 22 to 23 degrees Celsius across parts of the south, so a fairly pleasant end to the week. Then through into the evening, a rinse and repeat, a return of the low cloud moving in from the North Sea, many western areas staying dry and clear, so once again turning a little chilly under clear skies. But as we head towards the weekend, once again not much change, some low cloud to start in the morning, but plenty of warm sunshine by the afternoon. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Maintenance has closed the A8 Bargeddie westbound on and off slips with diversions. The A470 northbound from Nantgarv to Upperboat is closed for environmental work. A collision has shut one lane on the A38 northbound between junctions A61 Derby and A610, causing delays. In Birmingham, the M6 southbound is down one lane between junctions 6 and 5 due to a collision. An incident affects Hampshire's M3 westbound at junction 11, causing delays of up to 1.5 hours. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Caledonian sleeper services are disrupted between Lancaster and Carlisle. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
What does it feel like to be a Great British Giveaway winner?
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic.
You know, you have no idea how much I needed it. Oh my goodness. That's wonderful. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was gobsmacked. Thank you, GB News.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
You really could be our next big winner. Head over to gbnews.com/win now to find out how and get your entry for the Great British Giveaway. Great prizes, even greater wins.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
It's unacceptable that anybody is getting on a small boat and crossing the channel to the United Kingdom. The last government lost control of the borders. I'm determined that we'll retake control of the borders.
Yes, in Albania earlier on today, Sir Keir Starmer announced his aim to introduce return hubs, tough new offshore containment centres for illegal immigrants. But the Albanian Prime Minister told the media he would not even host one of Sir Keir Starmer's centres. Are you confused? Well, as you can see on your screens, our man Chris Hope grilled Sir Keir earlier and will help you to separate the reality from the rhetoric. But one person who seems unconvinced is the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp.
work. It is a con on the British public for Keir Starmer to claim these return hubs will have any practical effect, and it's had a big slap in the face.
And in another exclusive by our man Mark White, the Home Office has been condemned for a shocking waste of money, as we'll reveal the tens of thousands of pounds of your money, taxpayers' money, spent entertaining migrants at Kent processing facilities. And a bombshell new report warns the Bradford rape gang scandal left more than 72,000 British children at risk of sexual exploitation. And the council's leaders have repeatedly rejected calls for an inquiry, but will they finally now listen? And treatments for trans toddlers. Well, the NHS is now offering gender care to nursery-aged children. Can 3-year-olds really be transgender when a lot of them still think that the moon is made of cheese? And just a note to my director in my ear that I'm afraid the moon isn't made of cheese. Sorry to spoil your childhood dream. On a serious point, today was meant to be a new, tough plan from the Prime Minister. In Albania, Italy has offshore containment centres with the nation. They send their illegal immigrants there. They get processed and deported if necessary. We thought, wow, that sounds great. We'll have a bit of that. Except guess what? Humiliation for the Prime Minister today as the Prime Minister of Albania ruled out hosting one of these containment centres on Albanian soil, which begs the question, what on earth was today even about? Is there any meat on the bone? Well, we'll cross to Albania to speak to our political editor, Chris Hope, to try and separate the rhetoric from the reality. Get in touch the usual way. Do you think this will have any impact on the small boats crisis? GBNews.com/you'll say is the way to do it. Now, your headlines with the man with the voice as smooth as an otter's wallet is Lewis Mackenzie.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. Good afternoon. It's 3 minutes past 4. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. Now, as you've just been hearing, the Prime Minister says the UK is in talks with a number of countries about return hubs abroad for migrants awaiting deportation, although that won't include Albania. Sir Keir Starmer is in the country for talks with the Albanian PM to agree separate measures to crack down on organised crime and illegal migration. The government hopes to send failed asylum seekers to return hubs in Balkan countries once they've exhausted all avenues of appeal, although there won't be one in Albania. Sir Keir Starmer is looking to collaborate with other European countries to fulfil his pledge to stop the boats. He's been meeting security forces in Albania to see how officers searched for seized illegal materials. It's understood the UK will supply drones and share intelligence with North Macedonia and Montenegro to tackle people smuggling. More than 12,000 people have crossed the channel in small boats since the start of the year.
What now we want to do, and we're having discussions on, talks on, is return hubs, which is where someone's been through the system in the UK, they need to be returned, and we have to make sure they're returned effectively, and we'll do that if we can through return hubs. So that's what the talk's about. I would say in this area, no single measure is going to be the measure that is, if you like, a silver bullet. By putting it all together, arrests, seizures, agreements with other countries, returning people who shouldn't be here, and return hubs, if we can, through these talks, to add to our armoury, will allow us to bear down on this vile trade and to make sure that we stop those people crossing the channel.
Well, meanwhile, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says the return hub schemes will not offer a deterrent.
Better than nothing, but it won't work. The point is it won't work because most illegal immigrants crossing the channel are from nationalities where they will get their asylum claim granted because the laws are so soft. We think they need to be tougher. So they're never going to end up in these return hubs. So it simply won't work. It is a con on the British public for Keir Starmer to claim these return hubs will have any practical effect. The truth is they won't really, and he's had a big slap in the face when Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama just this morning told him he was not going to have a returns hub in Albania.
Ukraine's president has said that his country is sending a delegation to Istanbul for talks with Russia. Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Ankara for meetings with the Turkish President Erdogan. He has challenged Vladimir Putin to meet him for a face-to-face negotiation, but the Russian president, who proposed the talks, will not be involved. GB News has learned that the Home Office is spending tens of thousands of pounds on entertainment for migrants at a Kent processing facility. The results of a Freedom of Information request shows that more than £60,000 has gone on TVs with satellite channels, gaming systems and other entertainment at the Manston Processing Centre. The facility only houses migrants for an average of up to 48 hours after arriving in Kent, before they are sent off to hotels and other government accommodations. The Chancellor has welcomed new figures that show that the economy has grown more than expected in the first 3 months of the year. She's been meeting workers and giving an address at the Rolls-Royce factory in Derby this morning, as new figures show that GDP increased by 0.7% between January and March, slightly stronger than economic forecasts. The Chancellor says it proves that the government is moving in the right direction, but accepts there's much more to do.
But today's numbers are incredibly welcome. 0.7% growth in just the first 3 months of this year, set to be the fastest growing economy in the G7. And you can see growth really across the piece. Growth in services, growth in manufacturing, growth in business investment, exports and also in household spending. And I think that reflects some of the choices we've made as a government. Bring stability back to the economy, which has enabled the Bank of England to cut interest rates 4 times now, increase the minimum wage, putting more money in the pockets of working people.
And finally, one for the football fans. Pubs will be allowed to stay open until 1 a.m. if England or Wales reach the semi-finals or final of the Women's Euros. Closing will be put back from 11 p.m. cut-off, so football fans can get an extra time together to celebrate the final stages of the Championship in Switzerland this July. Well, those are all your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour's time.
Thank you, Lewis. Superb as ever. Now, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has announced that failed asylum seekers will be sent to return hubs in third countries while they await their deportation. But Albania has already ruled themselves out of taking part in this scheme in what's being considered a big humiliation to Sir Keir Starmer. Let's cross now to GB News' political editor Chris Hope. Chris Hope, you are there in Albania, and the plan has been slammed. Lee Anderson and Suella Braverman calling it a watered-down Rwanda. You'd expect them to have a pop. Left, right and centre, though, there's been criticism. Amnesty International are calling it a harmful distraction. Diane Abbott, the political left, don't like it at all. But Chris, I hear that you might have some good news for us.
You're listening there, the critics of the Prime Minister on the left and the right, Diane Abbott notably, and also on the right you've got Suella Braverman and Lee Anderson. It is never meant to be the Rwanda plan. That's a deportation plan. This idea they have is to try and to work out whether when people have been through the entire system of trying to understand if they can stay in the UK, they've exhausted the asylum process, they've still been turned down, and they can be returned to a safe third country. They're moved to somewhere. It won't be Albania. We've heard that earlier from the Premier of Albania, Edi Rama, but it will be somewhere else in the West Balkans. The PM is pretty clear. He's saying it's nothing to do with trying to do another watered-down Rwanda plan as claimed by the Tory party. He's trying to do an idea to try and free up space, maybe might free up space in hotels or get people out of the country, stop them trying to have children, maybe to stay in the UK under the ECHR right to a family life. But earlier here in Tirana, in Albania, I spoke at length to the Prime Minister, notably about his language on immigration, how it's changed this week, and whether he really meant it. Here's what he told GB News. In 2020, you said you want to make a wider case for immigration, make the case for the benefits of migration. How can GB News viewers believe you when you say you're concerned about it now?
Well, I've always said that our country should be able to walk forward into the future in a way which is bringing our communities together, our neighbours together. And that's why I'm clear that we shouldn't be an island of strangers.
Island of strangers was language, some say, used by Enoch Powell. So how do you respond to the left-wing MPs saying you're adopting Powell-like language, a dog whistle almost?
Well, that's a complete nonsense. My values are about how we bring our country together. I've always believed in the patriotism that Labour has long embodied as a political party. We are proud of our country. We take our country forward. We do that by bringing our neighbours together, by being neighbours and being a community, not by being strangers. That is a strong Labour value. It's a patriotic value. We've already taken effective action on arrests and seizure of assets across the globe, high-level arrests. We've already got many agreements in place now with other countries for cooperating on law enforcement. You saw some of that here in Albania this morning. UK forces alongside Albanian forces. What now we want to do, and we're having discussions on, talks on, is return hubs, which is where someone's been through the system in the UK, they need to be returned, and we have to make sure they're returned effectively, and we'll do that if we can through return hubs. So that's what the talk's about. I would say in this area...
There you have it, Sir Keir Starmer. I also asked him, Martin, will he fight the next general election? There's rumours that he may not want to from his critics. Well, he didn't say he would when he spoke to me, and then he did clarify 2 hours later, asked by other Jim reporters, he wants to be the candidate for Holborn and Pancras, where he represents at the next election, and then lead this 10-year revival, as he would see it, of this country. And the language there, I think, doubling down, trebling down, if you like, on the claim that he's being tough on migrants. No one on the left likes what he's saying about this, strangers in your own island, tearing your country apart. Some say that's language of Enoch Powell. In that 1968 Rivers of Blood speech, he says, no, I want to recognise concerns about migration by people who are experiencing it. But there is some better news here in Albania, Martin. I've noticed that the water we drink has the top not attached to the bottle. It's not woke water. I thought I should share that with you. Cheers.
That's the good news. I thought you were going to say, oh, we've got some great news on these return hubs, Martin. They're going to be exactly like the... You found some non-woke water, Chris. Beautiful. On a serious point, a lot of people listening to the language, and by the way, I think it is ridiculous to compare Sir Keir Starmer to Enoch Powell. It's simply and utterly absurd. This is people, I think, on the political left who don't understand the political... They don't understand the electorate, don't understand reality. Well, I think they've lost the plot.
Martin,
I really do.
Yeah, but on that point, you're exactly right, because what they're doing is playing the language, not what he's trying to do. Now, Keir Starmer has a lot of critics, GBNews viewers, and some don't like what he's up to, and he's a left-wing Labour MP. But I do think he's trying to talk the language on immigration. Whether he delivers on it, that is not understood. We've been here before. I've been here covering it for 20 years, watching PMs trying to get to grips with migration. But he's talking the language, trying to show and lead from the front on this. And to say it's Enoch Powell language is ridiculous. It's trying to shut him down when he's trying to take on, I think, big concerns, notably amongst GBNews viewers and listeners, and it's driving support, of course, politically towards Reform UK. It's a big moment of him trying to do this. I think saying it's Enoch Powell, in my opinion, totally ridiculous.
I agree with that, but here's another point. These return hubs will only be for people who've had all their asylum rejected in the UK. Well, 70% get their asylum accepted the first time. Loads more go into endless appeals. Chris, this will be a tiny amount of people, and I put it to you, it won't be that crucial deterrent.
He's putting a big toe in the water, not going all in. In his world, there's no silver bullet. The Tories disagree. They say, yes, Rwanda would have worked. Of course, it didn't. It wasn't even tried by the PM before he axed it on the second day of his time in government. Reform UK say, leave the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. That is contested by the PM. He thinks that's not required. He's trying to do it within the rules. We'll find out if that works. he sees these ideas of these big bazooka ideas, ECHR withdrawal or Rwanda, full fat, that kind of idea. He says that's a distraction from trying to work within the rules. But so far, frankly, it hasn't worked. And, well, you could be right with your suspicions. But right now, maybe he deserves benefit of the doubt, but it might well not work.
OK, Chris Oak, thanks for joining us. Superb interview as ever. And please enjoy your non-woke water live and direct. There we go. There it is. Look, he's so excited by a bottle that we can actually get the top off. Chris Oak, you're easily pleased. Beautiful. Thank you very much for joining us live from Albania. Great stuff. Now, in yet another sensational GB News exclusive by our man Mark White, the Home Office has been accused of a shocking waste of taxpayers' money as tens of thousands of your pounds are spent on entertaining immigrants at a Kent processing facility. And the man with that exclusive now, our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, is here to join us. Mark, this takes the biscuit. It's tens and tens of thousands of pounds being splurged on tellers.
Well, in its own right, it might not seem like a huge amount of money, but it's an example of the many wraparound services that are provided for these asylum seeker migrants when they cross the English Channel illegally. And I think this particular issue is one that will resonate and cause some understandable anger, because it effectively means that the second these migrants arrive in Kent and are bused to the Manston processing centre, a facility they're only at for 24 hours or 48 hours before then going on to their taxpayer-funded hotel, they are being provided with an entertainment package of televisions with subscriptions to all of the satellite channels of importance. Also, they are being given games consoles from Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation and others, and altogether it's tens of thousands of pounds, more than £60,000 at this one facility alone. And it has brought already quite an angry reaction. The former head of Border Force, Tony Smith, has told us he believes it's a shocking waste of money that would actually be counterproductive. He says, "I'm afraid that this simply fuels the pull factor and the smuggling pipeline into the UK, and it will do nothing to achieve the reduction in the arrival numbers that most people want to see." Another senior security source I've been speaking to described it as crazy. He said it was effectively rewarding bad behaviour, and that these migrants, of course, have survived for months in tents on their trek to northern France, and then many weeks and months in and around Calais and Dunkirk and alike without TVs, without video games, and have managed just fine. But of course, the second they arrive in the UK, they're provided with all of these special entertainment packages. Well, the Prime Minister was asked about this by Christopher Hope a little earlier. I think he dodged the question, really, but have a listen.
We found evidence that Manston, one of the processing centres, £80,000 being spent on satellite TV, video games in this one location. How isn't that a pull factor? The hotels we offered to migrants arriving in the UK, isn't that a pull factor to make people, encourage them to make that journey across the Channel?
Let me be absolutely clear why we're in the mess we're in. The last government had an open borders experiment. Many people came to the United Kingdom and they didn't process the claims. So you've got tens of thousands of people whose claims haven't been processed. Therefore, they couldn't be returned under the last government. They were put in hotels. That's not acceptable. And the British taxpayers picking up the bill. That's why we've allocated all the extra resource to processing the claims. Where we've processed the claims and people shouldn't be in the country, they've been removed. 24,000 have been removed. That's the highest figure for nearly a decade. They're out of the country. They had no right to be here. That is the way we bring down these numbers. That's the way we get people out of hotels. Under the last government, there were I think 400 hotels. It's down. We've got it down to just over 200. That's not good enough, but it does show that we're making a difference.
Mark White, I think your suspicion confirmed that the Prime Minister did dodge the question, and this notion of taxpayers seeing asylum seekers get free Sky TV, free video games, it really will boil their blood. But Mark, you've got more. There are yet more videos of the evidence of what British taxpayers' money is being spent on.
Yeah, it's an illustration, I think, Martin, of all of these wraparound services. We obsess, of course, because it's the most visible aspect of what is happening with the asylum seekers about the hotels, and it's £4.5 million a day. But there's lots more, of course, the entertainment packages, but their dental care, their health care, and clothing. They're all provided with fresh clothing when they arrive. That might be all well and good, given that, you know, they've been living rough for such a long period of time. But should the UK taxpayer be paying for that? In Denmark, for instance, they seize assets from migrants to pay for the likes of clothing. But here we're not just giving them clothing, we're giving them natty clothing, like little T-shirts with union flags on them. Just take a look at this particular video of one particular migrant, clearly happy with his freebie. And of course, what's happening with these videos is that they are being used by the people smugglers to be pumped out around the world to show lots of other migrants that, look, come here and this is what you get. You have fun dancing in your taxpayer-funded hotels. You get lovely little T-shirts like this. It's not just this fella here. There's lots of other videos really to the same bent that are being pushed out by these people smugglers, showing migrants in front of Buckingham Palace there, in front of other London landmarks, showing what a jolly good time they're having fled their war zone, and now they're arrived here in the UK. And as I say, it's all part of this packaged up advertising process that will simply encourage more migrants to make that journey.
Mark White, it looks like a tourist video. These are people who come here illegally, they're being housed, they're living the life of Riley, they've got video games, they're given Union Jack T-shirts, they're going on magical mystery tours, they're posting on social media, and the Prime Minister, meanwhile, is attempting to stop the pull factor with his return hubs today. Mark White, I put it to you, it will be ineffective, and these videos will be effective because they're an advertising vehicle telling more and more people, come to Britain, the life of Riley awaits you.
Well, they play the percentages, don't they? What are the chances of us making it safely across the Mediterranean, making it safely through Europe, making it safely across the English Channel, and once in the UK, what are the chances, the percentage chances of being able to remain? And the percentage chances are very high. We know that only about 3% of those who make it to the UK on a small boat are removed thus far. So clearly the percentage chance is very high. That's the pull factor. It doesn't matter what they're doing in terms of these return hubs in a small number of places that will only ever cater for a tiny number of the migrants that make it across the English Channel. The pull factor is the fact once they get here, they can stay.
Mark White, expert reports, as ever, another sensational exclusive. Thank you very much for sharing it with us here on the show today. Superb stuff. Now, moving on, the Labour Party has refused to fly a flag celebrating the British victory against Napoleon. Why? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain. We like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Labour Party has refused to fly an historic county flag over Downing Street. Look at it, majestic, the flag of Middlesex, which apparently celebrates the British battle against Napoleon. The Middlesex flag won't fly over Downing Street this year to mark the celebration because, well, they just don't like the look of it. Let's get into the reasons why, and I'm joined in the studio by the Shadow Paymaster General, Richard Holden, MP. Richard, pleasure to have your company. Before we get to the Middlesex flag and the killjoys, can I ask you about Sir Keir Starmer's trip to Albania, launching the tough new return hubs, the containment centres, but there has been a bit of a fly in the ointment. For starters, the Albanian Premier said he won't even take one in the country, and it's been slammed, as you'd expect, by the political right, Suella Braverman, Lee Anderson, calling it a watered-down Rwanda. It's also not liked on the left. Diane Abbott hates it, and Amnesty International are calling it a harmful distraction. Does it have any teeth?
I mean, it's got no teeth at all. It's quite clear that what Starmer's trying to do is pivot. He's seen a disastrous local election results. He's seen his own poll ratings crash through the floor. You know, he's seen Rachel Reeves, and the budget is an absolute disaster, costing jobs right across the country. And so he's trying to do anything to get away from all of that. So he's come up with this latest thing, which A, won't work, right? And B, he's scrapped the idea of doing this previously when he scrapped our Rwanda policy, and now he's got a civil war within his own party with his left, who say no, they don't go anywhere near this. They already hated his language from earlier this week, so he can't even take his own party with him. And I think it's just symptomatic of a Labour leader who's flailing around, does no idea what he wants to do. And actually, that, you know, it's not often I praise Plaid Cymru, but that woman in the House had him nailed on earlier this week when she said, "Is there any belief that he actually has?" And it's pretty pretty clear that he doesn't. And that's what got under his skin at Prime Minister's question so much yesterday.
It's fair to say, though, he would say, and he's been saying it all day, that he inherited a mess from the Conservative Party. The asylum system, he says, is broken and the hotels are full. He says he can make things better. Is there any evidence thus far that's happening?
Well, let's see what he, actually, we've seen the numbers up 40% on Channel crossings. Actually, the hotel numbers now at record highs. I'm not saying the Conservatives got everything right in office. We certainly didn't. But I think with the Rwanda scheme, we started to head in the right direction. The fact that he cancelled it was one of the first things he came in to do. Actually, now, if we'd done that, we saw what happened in Australia. They've been facing 40,000 people going a year through those illegal crossings. Within a few weeks, when a few thousand people have been moved to Nauru in their case, in our case, it would have been Rwanda, suddenly those crossings stopped. And now you're seeing, tens of people, not tens of thousands, making illegal crossings into Australia every year, and they get dealt with properly. I think he's actually probably thinking back, and some of those Labour strategists will be regretting that decision to cancel that Rwanda scheme, because it was a real start move in the right direction.
OK, thank you. Let's move swiftly on to the flag of Middlesex. Won't be flying this year above Downing Street. Look at this on the screen behind me. It's a majestic, iconic, beautiful flag. Look at this. It's iconic. It's just gorgeous. Labour Party don't agree. Why not?
Well, I think I don't understand why they hate our counties and they hate anything traditional about Britain. Now, so Middlesex Day is actually tomorrow, and that is a day, and the reason it was chosen is because the Middlesex Regiment held back Napoleon's forces in the Peninsular War campaign, basically preventing another an earlier version of Dunkirk, and enabled the Duke of Wellington to basically regroup his forces and then take on Napoleon. And they've cancelled flying these county flags. Now, in the last Conservative government, one thing we did do was to really try to celebrate some of our counties. So we actually had the flag flying from Downing Street every year on county flag days. And I think it's a nice thing to do, to celebrate our traditional counties. The Essex flag is not dissimilar. We don't have the crown on ours because we've obviously not got the capital city in the middle. But we've got the three Saxon knives there, which I think is, there's a real symbol of this part of the country, a real symbol of our Anglo-Saxon heritage. And that's a lot of these flags have nods to those heritage things. Think of the County Durham flag as well, has got the St Cuthbert's cross on it. A lot of these things have got real links into our traditions as a country. And it's just, it saddens me that Labour are happy to fly whatever woke flag comes off the production line, but when it comes to our traditional county flags, they're just not interested.
Yeah, the holy flag of pride seems to be ubiquitous across town halls, across governmental buildings. Is it also being taken down because it might offend the French? Or is it being taken down? And why not offend the French, by the way? We can't beat them at anything anymore, and we can't stop the dinghy, so all the more reason to hoist it.
Well, I'm almost surprised they've not tried to change the name of Waterloo Station under this Labour government at the moment, given Keir Starmer's desperate desire to please our European friends. I think there is, but I think it says something about the way that Labour's instinct is. Its instinct isn't actually to defend our culture, to defend our traditions. It's actually to attack them. Yet David Lammy has been illegally flying some random bisexual flag over the Foreign Office, risking a £2,500 fine for the government from the local council. So they won't fly our traditional county flags, but they seem to literally take the knee to any woke cause going, and to me that just seems ridiculous.
Was it also an issue that the fact this was Boris Johnson's idea, I believe?
Well, so Boris and a chap called Eric Pickles, who used to be our local government minister, they were very keen on this and have really been pushing, we're really pushing this sort of historic English county heritage. And I think it's something that, we should have, it was great to really start to push and to continue, especially in a time when I think so much of our heritage has been under attack. And it was a nice thing that Boris, really led a charge on actually, when he was in number 10, getting these county flags going again. And, I think that, they've still got till tomorrow. It would be nice to see number 10 do a sensible U-turn and get the Middlesex county flag flying over number 10.
Well, it'll be a U-turn that many might welcome. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio, Richard Holden. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio. Now then, there's lots more still to come. And look, I've got a crown again. It's beautiful. Lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including London dominates England's Social Mobility League with top 20 places. And guess what? The places that come at the bottom, Brexit land, left behind Britain. That's next. But first, here's your headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon. It's just after 4:30. Here are your latest GB News headlines. The Prime Minister says the UK is in talks with a number of countries about return hubs abroad for migrants awaiting deportation, although that won't include Albania. Sir Keir Starmer is in the country for talks with the Albanian PM to agree separate measures to crack down on organised crime and illegal migration. The government hopes to send failed asylum claims to return hubs in Balkan countries once they've been exhausted all avenues of appeal, although there won't be one in Albania. Sir Keir Starmer is looking to collaborate with other European countries to fulfil his pledge to stop the boats.
What now we want to do, and we're having discussions on, talks on, is return hubs, which is where someone's been through the system in the UK, they need to be returned, and we have to make sure they're returned effectively, and we'll do that if we can through return hubs. So that's what the talk's about. I would say in this area, no single measure is going to be the measure that is, if you like, a silver bullet. By putting it all together, arrests, seizures, agreements with other countries, returning people who shouldn't be here, and return hubs, if we can, through these talks, to add to our armoury, will allow us to bear down on this vile trade and to make sure that we stop those people crossing the channel.
The Chancellor has welcomed new figures that show the economy has grown more than expected in its first 3 months of the year. She's been meeting workers and giving an address at the Rolls-Royce factory in Derby this morning, as new figures show the GDP increased by 0.7% between January and March, slightly stronger than economic forecasts. The Chancellor says it proves the government is moving in the right direction, but accepts there's much more to do.
Today's numbers are incredibly welcome. 0.7% growth in just the first 3 months of this year. Set to be the fastest growing economy in the G7. And you can see growth really across the piece. Growth in services, growth in manufacturing, growth in business investment, exports, and also in household spending. And I think that reflects some of the choices we've made as a government. Bring stability back to the economy, which has enabled the Bank of England to cut interest rates 4 times now, increase the minimum wage, putting more money in the pockets of working people.
And finally, pubs will be allowed to stay open until 1 a.m. if England or Wales reaches the semi-final or final of the Women's Euros. Closing will be put back from 11 p.m. cut-off, so football fans can get extra time together to celebrate the final stages of the Championship in Switzerland this July. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3299 and €1.1867. The price of gold is at £2,416.20 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 8,604 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, there is more sunshine to finish off the week, feeling warm, but always a little bit cloudier, cooler across eastern areas. And it's all thanks to high pressure, just sitting to the north of the country, dragging in a northeasterly flow, so more cloud, a bit more of a breeze moving through here, adding on to the chill of things. And as we head through into this evening and overnight, it's likely we'll see a return of the low cloud, particularly across southern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, and then eventually across central and southern parts as we reach towards dawn, but many areas staying dry, clear, particularly in the west and across the north, where it's likely we could just about dip below freezing. So it's going to be a fairly chilly start for some as we head into Friday. Then across Scotland, potentially some mist and fog in prone spots, feeling a little bit chilly, very isolated spots of frost in rural parts, perhaps still some low cloud plaguing the very far northeast of Scotland, but across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, once again a dry and clear start to Friday morning, and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales, but still a chance of some low clouds, some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas, and still a chance it could linger here for much of the day, particularly around any North Sea coastal counties. But once again, for many areas, lots of dry weather around, wall-to-wall sunshine for many, particularly in the west. That's where we're going to see the best of the temperatures. Highs widely reaching the low 20s, highs of around 22 to 23 degrees Celsius across parts of the south, so a fairly pleasant end to the week. Then through into the evening, a rinse and repeat, a return of the low cloud moving in from the North Sea, many western areas staying dry and clear, so once again turning a little chilly under clear skies. But as we head towards the weekend, once again not much change, some low cloud to start in the morning, but plenty of warm sunshine by the afternoon. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A8 Bargedi westbound slips are closed. The A470 northbound is closed from Nantgarv to Upper Boat. On the A1 in Northumberland, an overturned vehicle has closed one lane, expected to clear by 7:40. On the M3 westbound in Hampshire, a collision at junction 11 has shut one lane, causing delays until 6:45. In Devon, a vehicle fire has closed one lane of the A30 westbound near the A375 and M5. And on the trains, disruptions between Lancaster and Carlisle affect Avanti West Coast and Caledonian sleeper services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:41 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, all of the top 20 areas for social mobility in England are in London, and that's according to new research by the Sutton Trust. Their Opportunity Index ranks areas based on factors like GCSE results, university completion and earnings by the age of 28, highlighting a sharp regional divide in children's life chances. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by the Chief Executive of the Sutton Trust, Nick Harrison. Nick, thanks for joining us. A really, really important report.
Yeah,
something very, very close. Pleasure, mate. Really a subject very close to my heart. I'm a coal miners lad from Nottingham, first person in my family to make the university. And I did that because it was free to go to university back in my day. There weren't the financial barriers. You know, Nick, I really, really worry about parts of Britain getting left behind. Your highlight zooms in. Tell us more.
Yeah, no, as I say, thanks for having me on. So the report looks at opportunities for disadvantaged young people in education and employment across the country. And as you say, we split it up by parliamentary constituency because we thought that would be really interesting. And ultimately what you see is, so kids from low-income backgrounds do worse than their better-off peers everywhere. But exactly as you say, the report shows that for disadvantaged kids, where you grow up has a huge impact on the opportunities you have. And, you know, to share some of the patterns, London, as you say, does very, very, very well. And all of the top 20 constituencies in the top of the ranking are from London. Outside of London, it's a really mixed picture. So Northeast, where I grew up, it does badly. Northwest does badly. But even in there are still some bright spots. So, you know, there are places in Birmingham and Manchester that do quite well. And then it's not just about rich and poor. So in the Southeast, which is a prosperous area, there are places in Surrey and Kent which don't do so well, for example. So it's quite a nuanced picture. But I suppose you would say, you know, what, and it shows overall the huge work we've still got to do to spread opportunity around the country. And I suppose you would then, ask, so why is it so different in those different places? And really, you know, it's about schools and how well schools perform in each of those places. And particularly it's about how well schools support the attainment of less advantaged pupils. So in London, for example, the schools do a really good job of closing the attainment gap between rich and poor. It's not so good elsewhere. You know, in London, more young people go to university, less so elsewhere. And of course, in London, the employment opportunities are so much greater. So they're all the factors kind of behind this.
Nick, what you get then is you get generational, you get this locked in. And if you can get to university, if you can, if you like, escape, then you go to places like London and the cycle repeats. We see brain drains, we see these voids opening up, and it creates a have and a have-not landscape across Britain. When you look at your map here, the end-of-the-line coastal community is abandoned and, of course, hollowed out by the loss of the fishing industry, by the loss of shipbuilding, steelmaking across the coal belts. Nothing ever really replaced those industries. And we have a political landscape. I think it's fascinating, Nick, that you've drilled into this by constituency, because this, in many ways, reflects voting patterns for the disenfranchised, forgotten people of Britain. Things like Brexit. Nick, I'm just going to call up a second map on the screen now. This is of the latest political polling this week, and it shows the Reform Party voting intention. Let's go on the screen if we can, and if we try... That's the political voting intention, and it almost exactly mirrors the map done by the Sutton Trust. I think we have that one as well. We can call up on screen now. It's just a land of people that have been forgotten about, they've been neglected, they've been ignored. And, Nick, we've got to do something about this. We've got to fix it.
We absolutely have. And look, you would absolutely say that so far governments of all colours have failed to level up Britain, right? And we absolutely do need to fix it. And if we don't, you know, there's huge swathes of the next generation being left behind, and we're not building our economy in the right way. We want growth in the economy, and, you know, many parts of the country are not contributing what they can because of that lack of opportunity.
You know, thank you so much for your report. I think it's fascinating. I think it's essential. It's so important we try and get kids, you know, on a ladder, on a rung up, to get them mobilised, to get them out there. And yeah, in terms of policy...
Just to say, it's not just get them out of there, as you say. It's kind of, it's build opportunities for them where they grow up, if that's where they want to stay. And it's enable them to move to other places if that's what they want to do.
Nick Harrison, I have to interject. I'm being told I must read on, because Lucy Connolly, the wife of a Conservative councillor who was jailed after she posted an online rant about migrants, is having her appeal against her sentence heard. Let's cross now.
Can't really say no more than that. It's a shame I didn't get a result today, but we'll soon know in the next few days. OK, and thanks for your time. Got to get home now to my daughter.
OK, so just for your message, that was the husband of Lucy Connolly, Raymond Connolly, speaking there outside the Royal Courts of Justice. Now, an appeal is being heard. Remember, Lucy Connolly was jailed for a Facebook post during the Southport riots and the aftermath of them, a Facebook post she deleted, but nevertheless became a sufficient burden of proof for her to go to prison for 2 years. Now, just to be absolutely clear, there is an appeal going on. No verdict has been reached, but that is ongoing now at the Royal Courts of Justice, after the online rant, some people called it, about migrants, is having her appeal against her sentence heard today. No verdict as yet. Many people believe, and this was used, if you remember, by J.D. Vance, by Donald Trump, as an example of a clampdown on free speech in Britain that's greatly concerned many about the direction of travel, freedom of speech in the United Kingdom. To repeat, Lucy Connolly having that appeal heard today, and that was her husband, Raymond Connolly, giving a short press conference. Any more details on that, we will, of course, keep you up to speed here on GB News. Now, in the meanwhile, if you're in search of some holiday sun, then here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Whilst widespread sunny skies return to the UK, rain clears Italy but pushes into Greece, where it will become increasingly windy by Friday. Fairly breezy for the Canaries, but it's mostly fine here with partly cloudy skies across Spain, Portugal into Gibraltar. 1 or 2 showers, otherwise plenty of sunshine. But for Italy, it's been very unsettled here, particularly in the south. We do have the rain and the wind pushing now into Greece, where it will be unsettled for a few days before turning brighter later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
A monumental breakthrough. Scientists have revealed that they've found strong evidence of alien life. Just 124 light years away.
Which is quite far, isn't it? Astronomers from Cambridge University have detected signs of molecules that do indicate life, so we may not be alone after all.
Well, joining us now to explain what on earth this exciting story is, the astronomer and broadcaster Mark Thompson joins us. Mark, just how important is this discovery?
Well, it's incredibly important. For so many years now, we've been looking for some signs that we're not alone in the universe. The universe is a massive place. It's often been said that there's more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on Earth. So, it's a big place. And to think that we're the only intelligent species in the entire cosmos is difficult to understand. And the discovery that's just been announced is that there's something called dimethyl sulfide, which is an element made of hydrogen, carbon and sulfur, which at the moment we think the only possible way that could be there is through some form of primitive living organisms.
So this is because it's a very complicated gas to sort of combine together. There's no way there could be some sort of volcano churning this stuff out. It has to be some sort of biological life form as the most likely explanation.
Yeah, absolutely. There are other elements, but this particular element, dimethyl sulfide, at the moment, the only process we know of that can produce it is life. Now, of course, we're still in early stages of this discovery, and we still need to do a lot of work to see if there's any other processes we can identify that can produce it. But for now, the only thing we know of is life, and so the only explanation therefore is that it's life, but it is still early days.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:52 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, loads of you have been getting in touch so far throughout the show via Your Say. Let's go to a few of them now. Now, Jane says this. Of course, there's an outrage because the Labour Party apparently won't fly the flag of Middlesex tomorrow on Middlesex Day. In case it offends the French, apparently. Well, there it is, the flag behind me. It's a beautiful thing. And Jane says this: hello, everyone in Middlesex. Fly your flags. Everyone else should be flying theirs too. Union Jacks, etc. We absolutely love flags. Linda adds this: I think the Middlesex flag is absolutely lovely. Fly it high and fly it with pride. But let's not fly pride flags, Linda. I see what you did there. Very, very good. Now, James adds this: we should be very proud of our flags, be proud of where you are from, be proud of being patriots. And John adds this: I don't think that any flag should be flown. Why should we fly Middlesex and not the flag of Lincolnshire from where I'm from? Well, John, I think we should do that as well. Why not fly all of the county flags on their National County Day? Let's celebrate our diversity. Yes, that word, our diversity of our counties. Rob adds this: the crown on the Middlesex flag suits you, Martin. Can we quickly get that back up again? We had the flag behind me, and it does give me a crown. There it is, beautiful. For the first time in my life, it's a small victory. Now, coming up next, there's massive anger as a Falklands War landing craft is decorated with the Pride flag. I'll be joined by a Falklands hero, of course, Simon Weston. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. But now it's your weather.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, there is more sunshine to finish off the week, feeling warm, but always a little bit cloudier, cooler across eastern areas. And it's all thanks to high pressure, just sitting to the north of the country, dragging in a northeasterly flow, so more cloud, a bit more of a breeze moving through here, adding on to the chill of things. And as we head through into this evening and overnight, it's likely we'll see a return of the low cloud, particularly across southern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, and then eventually across central and southern parts as we reach towards dawn, but many areas staying dry, clear, particularly in the west and across the north, where it's likely we could just about dip below freezing. So it's going to be a fairly chilly start for some as we head into Friday. Then across Scotland, potentially some mist and fog in prone spots, feeling a little bit chilly, very isolated spots of frost in rural parts, perhaps still some low cloud plaguing the very far northeast of Scotland, but across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, once again a dry and clear start to Friday morning, and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales, but still a chance of some low clouds, some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas, and still a chance it could linger here for much of the day, particularly around any North Sea coastal counties. But once again, for many areas, lots of dry weather around, wall-to-wall sunshine for many, particularly in the west. That's where we're going to see the best of the temperatures. Highs widely reaching the low 20s, highs of around 22 to 23 degrees Celsius across parts of the south, so a fairly pleasant end to the week. Then through into the evening, a rinse and repeat, a return of the low cloud moving in from the North Sea, many western areas staying dry and clear, so once again turning a little chilly under clear skies. But as we head towards the weekend, once again not much change, some low cloud to start in the morning, but plenty of warm sunshine by the afternoon. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. In Teeling, the A90 is closed northbound due to an incident. Environmental work has shut the A470 northbound from Nantgarv to Upper Boat, with diversions in place. There are delays on Warwickshire's A46 northbound between the A428 and M6 due to a lane closure. Hampshire's M3 westbound at junction 11 has up to 40-minute delays from a collision. Northamptonshire's A43 southbound and Buckinghamshire's M25 anti-clockwise have broken down vehicles. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Caledonian sleeper services face disruptions between Lancaster and Carlisle and in Preston. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain.
At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK.
It's unacceptable that anybody is getting on a small boat and crossing the Channel to the United Kingdom. The last government lost control of the borders. I'm determined that we'll retake control of the borders.
In Albania earlier on today, Sir Keir Starmer announced his aim to introduce so-called return hubs, tough new offshore containment centres for illegal immigrants. But the Albanian Prime Minister told the media he would not host one of Starmer's centres in his country in what many people are calling a huge humiliation. Are you confused? So are we. Well, our man Chris Hope grilled Sir Keir Starmer earlier on and will help you to separate the rhetoric from the reality. But one person who seems totally unconvinced is the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp.
It is a con on the British public that Keir Starmer to claim these return hubs will have any practical effect, and he's had a big slap in the face.
And in another exclusive by our man Mark White, the Home Office has been condemned for a shocking waste of money as we reveal that tens of thousands of pounds of British taxpayers' money are being spent on entertaining migrants at Kent processing facilities, giving them video games and free T-shirts. And the decoration of a Falklands War landing craft, as you can see on your screens, a craft with a pride flag right down the side of it, the hull. It sparked uproar among veterans. And I'll be speaking to a furious war hero, the one, the only Simon Weston, shortly on the show. And we've got live pictures on your screen now of Donald Trump. He's arriving at the Ritz Hotel in Abu Dhabi, as you can see, getting something of a hero's welcome on his whistle-stop tour of the Gulf region, putting billions of dollars of deals together on defence, on agreements, on trade, on cooperation, and taking this on a front foot to Iran. And we've got an action-packed show. That's all coming up in your next hour. That's George. Now let's go back to those live pictures there of Donald Trump. As we say, he's arriving at the Ritz Hotel in Abu Dhabi on a huge charm offensive, $142 billion deal struck first in Saudi Arabia and then in Qatar. Again, huge deals, financial deals, partnerships, spreading American companies like Nvidia, Elon Musk getting his Starlink in the air, his satellite-based internet system, giving total coverage of the area that cannot be interrupted by state propaganda, cannot be stopped by war, and of course a hugely strategic, important eye in the sky over the entire region as the net closes on the Ayatollahs in Iran. Very stern words, very strong words about Iran will not get a nuclear weapon, and huge arm deals being struck across the nation. Surely the lasso is tightening around Islamism. Trade is expanding, doing massive, massive deals. And it's fair to be said, he looks very, very much at home in the region. Trump has been, of course, in the United Arab Emirates today, the third and final stop of his Middle East trip. After, of course, he visited Saudi Arabia and Qatar. He was given a grand welcome, as you can see there in Abu Dhabi, and a private tour of the Sheikh Zayed's Grand Mosque, which he described as an honour. Before arriving in the United Arab Emirates, Trump spoke to American troops at the biggest military installation in the Middle East, the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, and there he vowed to never hesitate to wield American power if necessary. And that's a huge, huge point of this tour. It's about getting alliances with the Arab states, which, as I said, leans at huge political pressure on Islamist Iran. And he said, if you don't play ball, if you don't comply, you have a choice to make. We can do a deal or we can do it the hard way. And the hard way, he said, will be punishing sanctions, the choking off of Iranian oil, the choking off of Iran's financial lifeblood, which allows it to support Hezbollah, allows it to support Hamas, allows it to disrupt the region. And no surprise, earlier on today, I think we heard another breaking news line that Hamas now wants to talk to Donald Trump. This is working. Donald Trump is trying to bring stability to the area, one state at a time. And he said in Qatar, he vowed to never hesitate to wield American power if necessary. And speaking about recent VE Day celebrations, he said it was the US that won the war. That went down a bit badly, I have to say. And singing out France, said America did a little more to win the war than France did. That's true. That is absolutely true. We'll let you have that one. Donald Trump. And on the Ukraine-Russia peace talks, Donald Trump was unsurprised, he said, that Russian President Vladimir Putin was not attending them, asking, why would he go if I'm not going? So once again, Donald Trump setting out. He is the huge negotiator of peace in the area. Putin won't go and see Zelensky unless Donald Trump is there. Donald Trump isn't there. He's in Abu Dhabi, as you can see. Got to be said, getting the full state visit. There we see a soldier walking up, the sheikhs in attendance, and he got a hugely emotional send-off after he left the States. I think he's really cementing his position as somebody who's sealing the bond between the Middle East and the United States. Remember, none of this happened on Joe Biden's watch. His answer instead was to pump billions of dollars into Iran and hope and trust them that they wouldn't get nuclear weapons. Well, that didn't go too well, did it? Maybe this more not softly approach, but pumping billions of dollars of arms deals into the region sends out a clear message that the area will be fully defended, fully armed, and fully in cooperation with American global power. He also claimed that Iran has sort of agreed to a nuclear deal with the US because the next stage is, as I said, a deal is on the table and that deal says disarm your nuclear project or face the full consequences of American power and might, now quite clearly allied with the Gulf states, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and of course Israel in the area, now becoming a power hub with the Islamists, it would seem, very much on the wane. Donald Trump there in Abu Dhabi. I've got to say, it's a hugely impressive spread and awakening they're putting on for him as he arrives in this tour of the Gulf region. Superb stuff. Now, moving on to domestic politics back here in the United Kingdom. The Prime Minister has announced that failed asylum seekers will be sent to so-called return hubs in third countries while they await deportation. But there's been a humiliation for the PM because Albania has already ruled themselves out of taking part in this scheme on the same day, and a huge blow to Sir Keir Starmer. Let's cross now to GB News' political editor Chris Hope. Chris, you are there in Albania. You interviewed the Prime Minister earlier on. A lot of people were hoping this would be, at long last, a breakthrough. And we know that Italy has a deal with in Albania, offshore containment, offshore processing, with the power to deport back to country of origin. Chris, for people watching in the United Kingdom, they'll be disappointed to learn that the deal struck today is nothing like that whatsoever.
Yeah, some might be disappointed, notably the Conservatives, Reform maybe, others, but really that's not where Keir Starmer's coming at this. He's trying to almost build a kind of pile of things which can tackle illegal migration. He's got 2 new passport machines given over to the Albanians to spot for fake passports. He's doing deals for wider intelligence sharing in the region. He's also obviously in talks, as we saw earlier, with the Prime Minister, Eddie Rama. They're looking at doing returns deals and stopping this revolving door, which allows people sent back from the UK to Albania to go back, if they want to the UK again, to prevent them returning. And the fourth string to the bow, you might think, is this idea of a remote processing, return hubs, whatever you call it. But to be fair to Keir Starmer, he's not trying to say it's a kind of Rwanda scheme light. Rwanda was a scheme, of course, which the Tories had to deport people to Rwanda, process them there, they wouldn't be able to return. This is for people who have been through the whole system, far further down the track of all the different court cases. When they've failed to get asylum, they're taken out the UK and put into a third country and then returned to a safe country. It only applies to those who come from safe countries where they can be returned to. That's because the PM believes in human rights. He believes in ensuring that human rights laws are followed. He won't want to break those, unlike the Reform UK Party, and certainly the Tory Party are looking at that idea. So that's where it comes from. He's not really where you are, Martin, in this. He doesn't want a big bazooka, a big silver bullet. He wants to get there slowly but surely. That's the Keir Starmer way. Whether it works, well, we'll wait and see. The language is very tough. 3 or 4 times in my interview with him earlier today with GB News, he yet again said we don't want to be strangers on our island. We want to be neighbours, not strangers. Language which critics say is out of the Enoch Powell playbook, that Tory minister, of course, shadow minister at the time, who did that Rivers of Blood speech back in 1968. Now, he rejects all that nonsense, he told me, but there's no question he's trying to talk the language of people concerned about migration. But whether he walks the walk, well, time will tell.
Chris Hope's got to be said, I think it's utterly absurd to compare the language of Keir Starmer to Enoch Powell. It's simply ridiculous. I just cannot get my head around it. But the point is, the people on the political left of the Labour Party, they don't like what Keir Starmer's doing. In fact, in direct response to today's plan, Diane Abbott has compared it to Rwanda. Amnesty International calling it a harmful distraction. Meanwhile, of course, those on the political right putting the boot in. Lee Anderson, as you'd imagine, from Reform UK, Suella Braverman from the Conservative Party, calling it a watered-down, feeble copy of Rwanda. Left, right and centre, nobody really seems to like it.
Well, those are all his political enemies you're listing there, most of them are, and that's why he wouldn't mind that. I think I agree with you entirely. In fact, I would argue Keir Starmer agrees with Martin Daubney that it's nonsense to say that he's trying to ape Enoch Powell. And that is part of the problem of the whole immigration debate, is that whenever anyone tries to raise the actual issue faced by people concerned by migration, the critics play the man or woman, not the issue. And in this case, the people you listed there are attacking Starmer for trying to find language to equate, to work out, to come on the side of people concerned about migration. By doing that, they're playing the man, not the ball, not the issue. I think the PM does deserve credit for trying to do that. But as I say, we've heard so much language. I've been covering politics for 20 years. I've had endless speeches about why governments will crack down on migration. For Keir Starmer, a big journey since 2020, when he said, of course, running for leader, he was quite keen to on migration and immigrants and stop demonising them. Well, now it's changed with this huge wave of people who arrived here on the Tory party, and he's determined to get to the bottom of it. But whether it works, we'll wait and see.
Superb stuff there. Thank you, Chris Hope there, live from Albania. Thank you very, very much. Now, moving quickly on to another GB News exclusive. The Home Office has been accused of a shocking waste of taxpayers' money, as tens of thousands of pounds have been spent on entertaining migrants at a Kent processing facility. And joining us to tell us more is our Homeland Security Editor, Mark White, who uncovered this story. And, Mark, you've got more for us, because more evidence of money being splurged, not just on video games, but now on lovely new Union Jack T-shirts for the illegal immigrants.
Yeah, it's an indication really of the wraparound services and costs for catering for these migrants who come across the English Channel illegally. It's not just about the hotels that we hear so much about at £4.5 million a day in terms of the hotel costs. Lots of other services that need to be or are provided for these migrants. But one of the more controversial aspects surrounds the entertainment packages that have been provided for migrants at Manston. This is the processing centre in Kent, where once these small boat migrants arrive in the UK, they're taken to Manston and then they're processed only for 24 or 48 hours maximum. But in that time, there are television sets that have been provided, 14 of them in all of the marquees at Manston, and also we're told that there are video games consoles, 20 of them for Xbox, Nintendo, a PlayStation and alike, that have been provided again at a cost of about £60,000 plus. Now, we've had a statement from the Home Office just in the last few minutes. They've said the majority of the expenditure occurred under the previous government. I suppose that's fair enough. It was used on TV monitors which provide information and instructions for those at Manston. This new government is now reviewing this spend. Well, you know, on that point, it's true that, of course, this didn't just begin in the last year. This has been operational, and the freedom of information we've got is from 2022. So, yes, it was brought in under the Conservative government. But it does continue, and that's why the Home Office statement adds there that they are reviewing it, because there's a great deal of concern that, you know, this is seen as rewarding bad behaviour, that the second you step off a boat, having survived for many months in a tent around northern France or wherever else you've come from on that trek without a TV or video games, you've managed quite nicely. Well, another aspect in this wraparound service is the clothing. Migrants are given clothing, again, maybe understandably, because they, you know, a lot of them are filthy and disease-ridden, having come from living rough for such a long period of time. But should the British taxpayer be funding the clothing? And that clothing will include the likes of these natty T-shirts with Union Jack flags on them. Just take a look at this video. And the thing about these videos, as we've said before, Martin, the people smugglers use them. They're pushed out all around the globe, telling people that come to the UK, you can dance in your taxpayer-funded hotel room with clothing provided by the UK.
Free video games, free T-shirts for asylum seekers. They don't sort this out soon, Mark White. It is going to be game over for the political class. Thank you, Mark White. Another sensational exclusive. Now let's move the conversation on. I'm delighted to say I'm joining the studio in Westminster by the Reform UK for Runcorn and Helsby. Of course, that's Sarah Pochin. Sarah, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. Could I please start by asking for your take on Sir Keir Starmer's return hubs, the containment centres in Albania today? Already the Albanian Premier said, well, we're not even going to have one.
Keir Starmer has looked utterly incompetent all week on the subject of immigration. You know, he started out on Monday with this hyped-up paper, white paper on immigration. There's nothing in it. What we need in order to return these illegal immigrants, to stop the endless appeal system, is to leave the ECHR. That's not in that white paper. It's not happening under Keir Starmer. So what's going to change? Absolutely, I think the rest of it is just waffle, and we're going to try and we're going to make sure that they all can speak English, and we're going to do this. It's all nonsense. We know it's not going to happen. We have to have laws in place where we can enact actually deporting these people, and that means coming out of the ECHR. Only Reform's going to do that, and that was Monday. And then, of course, today, how embarrassing for Britain that our Prime Minister has gone to Albania to announce this deportation hub and this agreement, only to get there in front of all the cameras and Albania say, oh, hang on a minute, we're not doing that. Yeah, we might have done it with Italy, but that was a totally different set of circumstances. You know, Italy are our neighbours. We needed to have some, agreement with Italy. But we're not extending it to you, Great Britain. You know, how ridiculous. We look incompetent on the world stage, and It's shocking, to be honest. I'm almost speechless, which is rare for a politician and very rare for me, at the utter level of incompetence that the government has shown this week, from Monday through to Thursday now, aren't we? And it's just not getting any better. It's getting worse.
And what's really incredible about this is that a lot of people in Sir Keir Starmer's party don't like any of this themselves.
Yep.
Diane Abbott, of course, back in Labour now, calling this a harmful distraction. Amnesty International don't like it. You'd expect people like Suella Braverman to be having a pop, and, you know, your own colleague Lee Anderson, a watered-down Rwanda. But there's an issue here, and that is those on the left think it's too right-wing, and perhaps those who are on the right wing, if you like, don't particularly believe that Keir Starmer's conviction is in it. Do you think anything is cutting through? We're still seeing the numbers go up. It's now over 12,699 dinghies arrived this year. We're on track for another record year.
Look, the public aren't fools. They can see that this is Keir Starmer floundering around here now. He doesn't know which way to take this policy. He clearly has problems in his own party with, as you've given examples of, people that don't agree with this new stance that he's making. He's sounding more reform than reform these days, you know, on some of these things and some of his rhetoric. And his party are split on this. And it will be a real issue for them if they're divided over this. But the public are not fools. They can see what's happening. They know that he's grasping at straws because he's trying to keep up with reform. We are powering through with clear policies on this issue, and he doesn't have any, and he's looking, you know, utterly incompetent.
He would say, of course, he inherited a right old mess from the Conservatives. He would say he hasn't had enough time yet to put this into action. Let's move on to those videos we played a short while ago there from Marwai. I wonder if we can call them up again just so viewers can see on your screens now. There's pictures of freshly arrived asylum seekers in luxury hotels, resplendent in Union Jack T-shirts, looking like they're on a magical mystery tour. Pictures there of them outside Buckingham Palace, pictures of them, there we see on your screen, pictures of them outside the Etihad Stadium, that's the Manchester City ground in Manchester, doing things that many young British kids would love to do and don't have the opportunity. Sarah Potion, this is all laid on at taxpayers' expense. This kind of evidence absolutely bores the blood of British taxpayers who are paying for all of this.
Exactly. And I look at this and I feel so angry and so frustrated on behalf of my constituents in Runcorn and Helsby, people that voted me in, who feel that this is so unfair. Reform came through in Runcorn and Helsby, I have no doubt about it, because people now feel that they are suffering because, you know, public services are suffering, their standard of living is suffering because of the money we are wasting. And looking at these pictures, they're clean, they're warm, they're clothed nicely, you know, they're getting all these trips. My constituents can't, of Runcorn particularly, they can't afford to take their children down to Buckingham Palace. You know, there's some real deprivation there. And this is what they're seeing. This is where they're seeing their hard-earned taxpayers' money going. How do people feel? No wonder people are saying enough is enough. This Labour government, they could have stopped this. They could stop it overnight. But here we are seeing these migrants in new T-shirts. You know, OK, just because we put a Union Jack on their T-shirt, does that mean that suddenly they're, you know, they're British? You know, of course it doesn't. You know, we know what's going on here. This is propaganda. This is optics. Well, the British people, as I've said time and time again, do not underestimate the level of anger, the level of unfairness that people feel. And this sort of thing is just exacerbating it.
OK, Sarah Potion, the Reform UK MP for Runcorn and Helsby, thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Pleasure to have your company. Let's get a quick reaction now from the former Labour spokesperson, James Matthewson. James, welcome to the show. Left, right and centre, nobody's seeming to like the music coming out of the Labour Party HQ today about the return hubs in Albania, well, or not in Albania, because the Prime Minister said there he won't even have one of them.
Yeah, of course no one likes it, Martin. I mean, this is not the ground that the Labour Party is meant to be covered, all right? Like, if you try and appease the side of politics that you're not from and that your so-called values, if Keir Starmer hasn't he left, let's be honest, if your so-called core values, you're going against them to try and appease the other side of politics, which seems perfectly represented by Sarah Poach, and if I'm being honest, you know, she's just said Keir Starmer sounded more reform than reform, and that's horrifying to me. You know, somebody who's gone out, knocked thousands of doors for the Labour Party, campaigned my whole adult life for the Labour Party and worked for them, you know, and to hear somebody say that they're sounding more like the Reform Party than the Reform Party, and for that person to be a Reform UK MP, it's absolutely horrifying to me. Why are we in this situation? What does Keir Starmer stand for? What are his values? What does he represent? Because I'm getting phone calls every week, Martin, from friends saying, you told me to vote for this guy. You told me to vote Labour. And I'm a trans person, and I felt safer under David Cameron because he was more socially liberal. You know, I'm somebody who supports immigration from the EU and from different parts of the country. I thought Starmer was pro that. If you move away from any of the values you're supposed to represent, you please no one, and that's what we're seeing here.
James Mathieson, very, very eloquently put. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. It's a pleasure to have your company. Thank you. Now, there's huge anger brewing as a Falklands War landing craft has been decorated by a pride flag. And I'll be joined by a war hero next. Simon Weston with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 5:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the decoration of a Falklands War landing craft to celebrate Pride has sparked uproar among veterans. And this is the first war vessel in British history to be wrapped in the Pride colours. Now, is this an outrage to our war heroes? Well, let's speak to one now. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the Falklands War veteran, the hero, Simon Weston. Simon, always a pleasure to have your company. It really, really is. What do you make of this when you see the Falklands craft being wrapped in the Pride flag like this?
Looks a bit garish to me, but you wouldn't take it to war, that's for certain. You wouldn't last 30 seconds. Somebody'd see you from miles around. I understand that people are celebrating 25 years of gay people being allowed into the military and being open about their sexuality. But if I'm honest, there were quite a few people who were gay in the Falklands when we were fighting. And, you know, courage doesn't know sexuality. So that's one thing we have to acknowledge. But did they need to do it? Probably not. But as it's only wrapped, it can go back to its original state. And we don't, you know, hopefully we won't see it again. But I suppose the way the world is going, you can do almost anything you want if you're from one of the communities on the fringe of things. But if you're, you know, if you're not, if you're mainstream, you can get sacked for telling a joke. So in the military, you know, so you've got to be very careful about what you say. But, you know, did they need to do it? Probably not. But I understand the sentiment behind it. You know, and I think it's absolutely right that gay people have the right to serve and be open about their sexuality. So, you know, there's a lot of people who went through an awful lot of pain whilst they were in the military and hiding their sexuality. So, you know, I understand that there's been an awful lot of discomfort for people. But this, you know, like I say, it's garish. It's not my taste. It's not for me. But, you know, I understand why people have done it.
You know, and Simon, there has been a more, how should you put it, vociferous reaction from some quarters. The Portsmouth Historic Quarter told veterans will be turning in their graves after this decision to coat this craft Foxtrot 8 in the rainbow vinyl wrap. And it has to be said that there has been a big reaction against this. And again, it's nothing to do, you're absolutely right, and you very passionately and eloquently said there, you know, everybody should be free to do whatever they want with their sexuality. We live in the modern times and in the armed forces, exactly. A lot of people have had stigma for a long time, but people are saying, is this the right way to do it? A lot of people feel that gender politics is shoved down their throats wherever you go.
Well, yeah, I can completely understand a lot of people who will be really offended by this. I'm not one of them, by the way, but there are people who will be really offended, and people who served on these boats. You know, there was people killed in these boats. So, you know, people taking it somewhere else and making an argument and gender politicizing things. It seems that this is the way we're always going. We're always trying to create some sort of division, and there always seems to be somebody trying to make a point that didn't need to be made. You know, they won the argument, they got their right, and quite rightly so. But do they still have to keep banging that drum? It seems like somebody always somewhere is trying to make people feel guilty or punish people for what decisions were taken by senior people many, many years ago. You know, I don't think you need to denigrate people's history completely like this, but they've been given permission, and, you know, so be it. I can't change that, and none of the other veterans kind of were really offended. But like I say, I'm not really offended by it. I just think it's tasteless, but I understand the sentiment behind it, but I would have preferred them to have found a different way to celebrate. I don't think they needed to do this. And that boat was in use 43 years ago, not 25 years ago. So 25 years, there should have been something that they could have got their hands on 25 years with a 25-year symbolism, not take something where so many people lost their lives, and people lost their lives in these types of boats. You know, there weren't enough of them to get us off the Sir Galahad. You know, and it seems like people can get hold of one quite easy now and do what they want with it. So I think there's issues, and I think that there could have been a more sensitive way of doing things. And I do understand the people's upset about it, and the families. There'll be some of them will be upset as well. You know, they lost
Simon Weston. Simon Weston, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have your company. I truly mean that. Thank you for joining us today again on GB News. Falklands War veteran and the hero, Simon Weston. Thank you. I'll play more to come throughout the rest of the show, but for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, first, be safe. And secondly, here is your travel and your traffic update, and please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A90 at Teeling is closed northbound due to an incident, and the southbound carriageway is restricted. Drivers should proceed with caution and allow extra time. The A470 is closed northbound from Nantgarw to Upper Boat for maintenance, with diversions. On Northumberland's A1 northbound, one lane is closed due to an overturned vehicle, expected to clear by 8:12 p.m. Warwickshire's A46 northbound between the A45 Coventry East and M6 junction faces 20-minute delays. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services face disruption between Lancaster and Carlisle. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Well, now you go out there, and there's lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock, including can toddlers be transgender? But first, here's your latest news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon. It's 35 minutes past 5. I'm Lewis Mackenzie in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister says the UK is in talks with a number of countries about return hubs abroad for migrants awaiting deportation, although that won't include Albania. Sir Keir Starmer is in the country for talks with the Albanian PM to agree separate measures to crack down on organised crime and illegal migration. The PM is looking to collaborate with other European countries to fulfil his pledge to stop the boats.
What now we want to do, and we're having discussions on, talks on, is return hubs, which is where someone's been through the system in the UK, they need to be returned, and we have to make sure they're returned effectively, and we'll do that if we can through return hubs. So that's what the talk's about. I would say in this area, no single measure is going to be the measure that is, if you like, a silver bullet. By putting it all together, arrests, seizures, agreements with other countries, returning people who shouldn't be here, and return hubs, if we can, through these talks, to add to our armoury, will allow us to bear down on this vile trade and to make sure that we stop those people crossing the channel.
GB News has learned that the Home Office is spending tens of thousands of pounds on entertainment for migrants at a Kent processing facility. The results of a Freedom of Information request shows that more than £60,000 has gone on TVs with satellite channels, gaming systems and other entertainment as the Manston Processing Centre. The facility only houses migrants for an average of up to 48 hours after arriving in Kent before they are sent off to hotels and other government accommodations. A Home Office spokesperson has told GB News the majority of the expenditure occurred under the previous government. It was only used on TV monitors which provide information that instructions for those at Manston. The new government is now reviewing this spend. The Chancellor has welcomed new figures that show the economy has grown more than expected in the first 3 months of the year. She's been meeting workers and giving an address at the Rolls-Royce factory in Derby this morning, as new figures show GDP increased by 0.7% between January and March, slightly stronger than economic forecasts. The Chancellor says it proves that the government is moving in the right direction, but accepts that there is much more to do. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
But before I go, here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3288 and 1.1888 euros. The price of gold is at £2,423.06 per ounce. And the FTSE 100s closed the day at 8,633 points.
Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head into tomorrow, there is more sunshine to finish off the week, feeling warm, but always a little bit cloudier, cooler across eastern areas. And it's all thanks to high pressure, just sitting to the north of the country, dragging in a northeasterly flow, so more cloud, a bit more of a breeze moving through here, adding on to the chill of things. And as we head through into this evening and overnight, it's likely we'll see a return of the low cloud, particularly across southern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of England, and then eventually across central and southern parts as we reach towards dawn, but many areas staying dry, clear, particularly in the west and across the north where it's likely we could just about dip below freezing. So it's going to be a fairly chilly start for some as we head into Friday. Then across Scotland, potentially some mist and fog in prone spots, feeling a little bit chilly, very isolated spots of frost in rural parts, perhaps still some low cloud plaguing the very far northeast of Scotland, but across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, once again a dry and clear start to Friday morning, and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales, but still a chance of some low clouds, some mist and fog, particularly across eastern areas, and still a chance it could linger here for much of the day, particularly around any North Sea coastal counties. But once again, for many areas, lots of dry weather around, wall-to-wall sunshine for many, particularly in the west. That's where we're going to see the best of the temperatures. Highs widely reaching the low 20s, highs of around 22 to 23 degrees Celsius across parts of the south, so a fairly pleasant end to the week. Then through into the evening, a rinse and repeat, a return of the low cloud moving in from the North Sea, many western areas staying dry and clear, so once again turning a little chilly under clear skies. But as we head towards the weekend, once again not much change, some low cloud to start in the morning, but plenty of warm sunshine by the afternoon. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 5:42 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the NHS has removed a proposed age limit that would have prevented children under the age of seven from being referred to specialist gender identity clinics. Well, initial guidance suggested that under sevens were just too young for such services, but now new guidance will allow children of any age to be treated. But really, can a toddler be transgender? Well, let's speak now with the Tavistock whistleblower, Sue Evans. Sue, a lot of toddlers think the moon is made of cheese. How on earth are they meant to know they're transgender or not?
Well, it's a very good question. And I think what would have happened for years, for decades, for millennia, is that children, of course, when they're first sort of in the world and learning about the world and learning about their own identity, they would have spoken with their parents and they would have learnt about boys and girls and mummies and daddies and so on. And I think that the issue that we have now, it's slightly complex, but I think because of the way the ideology of transgenderism has been pushed, into the mainstream. So, you know, it's taught at schools, there are books at nurseries about, you know, you don't really have to be a boy or a girl, you might be in between and non-binary and so on. It's given young children a very confusing language, I think, firstly, and ideas. So in a way, I think they're being taught this, and it's not to say that in the past children wouldn't have maybe sometimes come out with something about wanting to be a boy or a girl, whichever they weren't. But parents would have dealt with that in a sort of low-key way and maybe sort of explored it a bit with them, as you would any idea that they say. If they say they were a goldfish, you might say, oh, why do you think that? And might sort of humour them. But really, there is no such thing as a transgender child. Can I say one more thing? Having said that, I do indeed meet children and young adolescents who really do feel very, very uncomfortable with the sex that they are. So I think it's also, whatever we call it, there are people who are really uncomfortable with their identity. Yeah. That makes sense.
It does. And Sue, of course, everybody should be free to live the life they want. And I wish a peaceful and prosperous life upon everybody. And I know you do too. But here's my point. My daughter is obsessed with my cat, Harry. She says, Daddy, I wish I was a cat. I'd love to be a cat. I went, yeah, great, but you can't be a cat. It's a cat. You're a human. And why can't parents just say, well, if their child says, Daddy, I'd love to be a boy, it's like, well, you can't be, I'm afraid. Let's talk about why you feel the way you are, but you can never be a boy. It's impossible. You're a girl. That's reality. Biology is biology. The law agrees, science agrees, but I'm afraid it seems the NHS don't agree, that they're indulging the fantasy that we can transition into the opposite sex.
Yes, well, I think the Cass report, and I don't know if your viewers are aware of that, but, you know, it was a large report done several years ago after I did blow the whistle and we had the court case with Keir at the High Court for the judicial review. But she did a really important piece of work to look at the evidence base for this idea of treating, because I felt very uncomfortable with younger people being given hormones. I thought it was very wrong. But she didn't get everything right. So I think it was a really important piece of work. And of course, that's just in my opinion. If she'd asked me, I would never have really gone along with the idea of developing more hubs similar to the Tavistock. They may well have, at the moment, better educational work going on with the staff who work there. But my worry is always that if you create this speciality, then somehow you've given the message to these children, if you've got this idea about yourself, you've got to go off to a special clinic. And I think that the gender dysphoria or the transgender idea is a symptom of something else that's going on with the child. And I really, really was hoping that we could always deal with this, you know, at primary and secondary level within the community mental health teams. But of course someone else would say, oh, but they're captured, and that's true. For some reason, this particular idea, this ideology, whatever you call it, really caught fire. And so it became very contentious to sort of say, well, there might be something going on with this child. You were told, no, you've got to believe them. It's a problem.
OK, well, let's see if we have a return to common sense. We've had some from you tonight. Sue Evans, thank you very much for joining us on the show. Pleasure to have your company. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Whilst widespread sunny skies return to the UK, rain clears Italy but pushes into Greece, where it will become increasingly windy by Friday. Fairly breezy for the Canaries, but mostly fine here with partly cloudy skies across Spain, Portugal into Gibraltar. 1 or 2 showers, otherwise plenty of sunshine. But for Italy, it's been very unsettled here, particularly in the south. We do have the rain and the wind pushing now into Greece, where it will be unsettled for a few days before turning brighter later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
A very good morning to you. And if you're planning to visit one of Britain's many beauty spots next bank holiday or Easter weekend, beware of your car.
Yeah, a rising number of tourist attractions are banning coaches and some cars to help ease overcrowding.
We're here to debate if vehicles should be stopped from parking near attractions. Government Relations Manager at the Countryside Alliance, David Bean, and founder of Fair Fuel UK campaign, Howard Cox. Good morning to you both.
David, how much of a problem are tourists when there are too many of them and they bring their great camper vans and they park all their cars in a line so you actually can't see the beauty spot you went to see? How much of a problem is it?
It can be a significant problem in certain areas. I'm in Scotland for the holidays, and particularly in areas such as the Highlands and Islands, there are areas that have very, very badly been affected. Even some camper vans end up getting taken out to certain places on the islands and then just abandoned after a holiday is finished.
Honestly, this is horses for courses, and to be fair, you know, I actually do believe that we need better signage, better planning, and Cameron hit the nail on the head. You can't get to these beauty spots unless you have some sort of transport to get there. And, you know, public transport is woeful across the country in these areas. Obviously, yesterday in the Berlin Gap one, you can't legislate for idiots. It needs better signage, better information, but if you take people away from it, you take income away from the community. You know, I think any organisation that's promoting a beauty spot that's making money out of it should be paying for better signage, better parking facilities, etc. I do not like the idea of cars being, you know, queuing up illegally, you could say. That's ridiculous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:51 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, we've got some live pictures to show you on your screens now. There is Donald Trump sitting down on the leg of his Middle East tour, the final leg of his tour of the Gulf states. He's now in Abu Dhabi, where Donald Trump is continuing that trip. This is the UAE President, that is Sheikh Mohammed. They are having an exchange. Donald Trump is no doubt about to do one of his trademark speeches, and Sheikh Mohammed says we are keen to continue deepening this friendship for the benefit of both of our nations and peoples. Perhaps we could listen in.
You know that. And we were talking about you, and I won't tell you everything they said, but I can say it was all good. It was all good. Total admiration and respect for what you've done and who you are. And they said, when he gives you a handshake, when he makes a deal, that's the deal. And your wonderful brother came to Washington a few weeks ago, and he told us about your generous statement as to the 1.4 trillion. And all I could say is thank you very much. We will work very hard to deserve it. I have absolutely no doubt that the relationship will only get bigger and better. Your relationship and mine can't get better, so I can't say it's going to get better because it's at the highest level it can be. But our countries will work together. We've become a very hot country. We were not such a hot country 6 months ago. And now I think we're the hottest country, if you want to know the truth. We had one little indication a year ago. we were having a hard time getting people to join the military. Enlistment, they call it in our country. We were getting very bad vibes, very unhappy. It was an unhappy country. A lot of foolish things were happening, stupid things were happening. And we just got the numbers. We had the highest enlistment numbers just about that we've ever had. We think it's probably the highest, but they say have to be extremely accurate when it comes to the news, because they check every word I say. If there's a little bit of an inaccuracy, but I will tell you, we had just about the best numbers for enlistment we've ever had. Every one of our services. I'm very proud of Space Force because I created Space Force. That was my baby. Hadn't been done in 78 years, a new force, and it's doing phenomenally well. We were not winning the space war, and now we're leading it by tremendous margins over Russia and China primarily. And so we're very proud of it, but I'm very proud of, maybe even more so, the enlistment numbers. So we went from having a hard time getting people to join our armed forces and our police, by the way, to having the best numbers that we've ever had, wanting to join. They're proud of our country again. That's a big thing, and to happen so fast, over about a 6 or 7 month period, that's a big honor. And likewise, the police, very hard to get police, and now the ranks are bursting and with pride. So that's something that we're very happy about. We've had investments in our country over the last 3 months, but really 2 months, because it took me a couple of weeks to get started. You know, I had to get a little acclimated again, because we had a very successful first term, as you knew. We had one of the most successful economies in the history of our country. First term was amazing. We did a lot of things. We rebuilt our military. We did a lot of great things. And I think this is even going to be better. But we have now, I think, substantially over $10 trillion of investment. And now when I add the $1.4 trillion, we easily break that number. So that's investment or investment that we think will soon happen. And it doesn't include people that are building, because not everybody comes and tells us that they're building, and you know, it's a big country, but we're having numbers that we've never done before, and that means AI plants. That means, as an example, a really good example is Apple. Apple is now spending much more than $500 billion on plants. They didn't do that before. As you know, they built their plants in another location. We have the biggest computer company, $500 billion. We have Mr. Wei of Taiwan is spending $200.
That is Donald Trump there in Abu Dhabi with Sheikh Mohammed, the leader there, talking about $1.4 trillion worth of deals over the next 10 years in energy, artificial intelligence and industry. Trump, the deal maker. Now, coming up next is Dubes & Co. with Michelle Dewberry, the queen of primetime debate. That'll be simply unmissable. I'll be back at 7 p.m. I'll see you then. In the meantime, we're now going to throw to your next show, Dubes & Co.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M77 northbound at Junction 1 off slip faces an incident. The A470 is closed for environmental work between Nantgarv and Upper Boat. An overturned vehicle on the A1 northbound in Northumberland has closed a lane with resolution by 8:37 p.m. The M6 northbound in Cheshire has delays until 6:10 p.m. due to a broken down vehicle. The M25 in Surrey experiences 20-minute hold-ups until 6:16 p.m. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and Caledonian Sleeper report disruptions between Lancaster and Carlisle. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
What does it feel like to be a Great British Giveaway winner?
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic.
You know, you have no idea how much I needed it. Oh my goodness.
That's wonderful. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I was gobsmacked. Thank you, GB News.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
You really could be our next big winner. Head over to gbnews.com/win now to find out how and get your entry for the Great British Giveaway. Great prizes, even greater wins.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Jubes & Co. Coming up tonight, the UK economy has grown more than expected in the first quarter of this year. So are we beginning to turn a corner then, or not? And there's a big summit coming up to reset relations between us and the EU. But there's a little bit of trouble brewing because the EU are pushing for more fishing access and better youth mobility. How should we move forward then with more closeness? Or not? And the Prime Minister Keir Starmer was in Albania today to discuss migrant return hubs. Slightly embarrassingly though, the Albanian leader said, not here, thank you very much. But anyway, do you think these hubs are the answer or not? And the appeal into Lucy Connolly's 31-month prison sentence for a tweet failed to reach a verdict today. What do you think to this? Should she be released early or not? Well, we've got all of that and lots more alongside me, the journalist and former spin doctor Joe Phillips and the chairman of the Great British Political Action Committee, that's a mouthful, Ben Habib. Before we get stuck in though, let's cross live and give you your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Thanks, Michelle. Good evening. It's 2 minutes after 6. Here are your latest GB News headlines. As you've just been hearing, the Prime Minister says the UK is in talks with a number of countries about return hubs abroad for migrants awaiting deportation, although that won't include Albania. Sir Keir Starmer is in the country for talks with the Albanian PM to agree separate measures to crack down on organised crime and illegal migration. Sir Keir Starmer is looking to collaborate with other European countries to fulfil his pledge to stop the boats.
What now we want to do, and we're having discussions on, talks on, is return hubs, which is where someone's been through the system in the UK, they need to be returned, and we have to make sure they're returned effectively, and we'll do that if we can through return hubs. So that's what the talk's about. I would say in this area, no single measure is going to be the measure that is, if you like, a silver bullet. By putting it all together, arrests, seizures, agreements with other countries, returning people who shouldn't be here, and return hubs, if we can, through these talks, to add to our armoury, will allow us to bear down on this vile trade and to make sure that we stop those people crossing the channel.
GB News has learned that the Home Office is spending tens of thousands of pounds on entertainment for migrants at a Kent processing facility.